If this message has reached your ears, it is because a profound part of your consciousness emitted a silent cry. You are exhausted by the old answers. You are tired of pushing the heavy gears of the world and feeling that life is a constant, sterile battle. You asked for a way out, a truth that society could not give you. The universe, in its infinite and majestic precision, moved the invisible threads of destiny to place this work before you. This is not a simple audiobook. It is a predestined contract that you yourself forged before you even had memory. An ancient Sufi parable tells the story of a young merchant obsessed with escaping misery. He abandoned his home in search of a legendary diamond spoken of by travelers. He traversed scorching deserts, crossed wild oceans, and climbed mountains of ice. He spent his entire youth suffering hunger, betrayal, and pain, asking in every corner of the world for the promised gem. After decades of fruitless searching, he returned. Old, tired, and with a broken spirit, he went back to his native village to die. One night, while he was shivering, the worn lining of his old coat tore completely. From between the frayed seams, a diamond of incalculable proportions fell to the ground. His wise father, knowing the dangers of the world, had sewn it hidden there. He did this the night before his departure to secure his future. The merchant had been immensely wealthy throughout his painful journey, but he lived as a beggar because he never stopped to look within. You are that merchant. You have spent years wandering the labyrinth of the outer world, seeking success, love, power, and peace. You sought them in the wrong places. You have poured out your energy trying to tear fragments of happiness from an environment that seems made of stone, completely ignoring that the supreme treasure, the absolute power to alter your reality and forge your own destiny, was always sewn into the fabric of your very being. This work has not come to teach you anything that your soul does not already know in secret. It has come to tear the old coat of your limiting beliefs. It has come to reveal to you the sacred calligraphy with which existence is written, so that you stop behaving like a slave to circumstances and assume once and for all your crown. Chapter 1. The Language of Echoes. You do not attract that which you desire. You inexorably attract that which you are. The universe is an immense acoustic mirror that does not understand pleas, but frequencies. Axiom of Hermetic wisdom. Throughout the centuries, humanity has lifted its gaze toward the night sky with eyes soaked in tears, seeking the consolation of a benevolent deity or the favor of a compassionate cosmos. In the stillness of the night, millions of souls have whispered their prayers, begged for a stroke of luck, and pleaded for the love that eludes them. They have cried out for the end of their financial suffering. They have lit candles, recited ancient words, and offered sacrifices, blindly believing that if their pain was great enough, or their tears bitter enough, the universe would finally take pity on them and deliver the longed-for reward. But the firmament has remained inscrutable. The stars have continued their millenary dance undeterred, and the lives of those supplicants, in their overwhelming majority, have not changed at all. Their debts have grown, their relationships have withered, and loneliness has entrenched itself in their hearts. Faced with this deafening silence, the ordinary man fills with resentment. He accuses the world of being an unfair, cruel, and chaotic place. He curses his luck and convinces himself that success, abundance, and peace are reserved for a chosen few by the whim of chance. He surrenders to inertia, assuming the role of perpetual victim in a theater governed by forces he cannot understand. However, this suffering is born from the most tragic and fundamental ignorance that our species suffers, the lack of knowledge of the language in which existence truly communicates. The universe is not cruel, nor is it unfair, nor is it chaotic. It is, on the contrary, a system of absolute mathematical and aesthetic precision. Its apparent indifference to your pain is not malice. It is simply that you are speaking to it in a language that the fabric of reality cannot decipher. The cosmos is completely deaf to your words of need, blind to your tears of despair, and immune to your complaints. The universe does not speak the language of desire or pity. The universe speaks solely and exclusively the language of echoes, the language of resonance. The parable of the two lutes. To understand the unshakable magnitude of this law, we must travel back in time to the ancient courts of the East, where masters knew that music was not simple entertainment, but the exact replica of the forces that sustain the world. An ancient and revered Chinese parable tells that, in the palace of a great emperor, there were two lutes of incomparable beauty, carved from the same sacred wood and strung with identical mastery. These two instruments were placed at opposite ends of the immense throne room. They were identical in form, but their strings were loose. The emperor, seeking the perfect melody, summoned the most skilled musicians of the kingdom. One after another, the artists entered the hall. They took the first lute, tuned its strings to their own liking, and began to play. The music was beautiful, but the second lute at the other end of the room remained in a deathly silence. The emperor, dissatisfied, dismissed them. He sought the miracle of hidden harmony. One day, an old man in humble clothes arrived at court, without arrogance or haste. He did not boast of his ability. He walked slowly toward the first lute and sat down. However, he did not begin to play. He closed his eyes and breathed deeply. After long hours in complete silence, with exquisite patience, he began to tune the instrument. He tightened and loosened each string with millimetric care, but he did not do it at random. He tuned the first lute to the exact, perfect, and harmonic scale in which the second lute in the distance was found by its own nature. When the old man was sure of the tuning, he gently plucked a single string. The note kung floated through the air of the hall, and then the miracle occurred. Without anyone touching it, without any physical force mediating, the kung string of the second lute across the room began to vibrate on its own, emitting an identical sound. The old man plucked the chi string, and the chi string of the distant instrument responded with a perfect echo. The old man had not tried to force the second lute to play. He had not begged it. He had not crossed the room to manipulate its strings. He had simply aligned the vibration of the instrument in his hands with the frequency. He aligned it with the frequency of what he wished to awaken, and nature, obeying its own sacred laws, did the rest. The entire hall was filled with the music of invisible echoes. To the architecture of human frequency, this parable contains the best-kept secret of inner alchemy and the manifestation of destiny. You are the musician in the Emperor's Hall. Your being, your body, mind, and spirit, is the first lute, and all the circumstances of life, the wealth you crave, the deep love, the radiant health, are the second lute, waiting across the room. The ignorant man spends his entire life running toward the second lute. He runs toward the external world, trying to manipulate people, force businesses, demand to be loved, and compel life to give him what he thinks he deserves. He plays the strings of others with violence and haste. As a result, he only produces a discordant noise. He exhausts his vital energy and breaks the strings of the external world, which resists being dominated by brute force. The wise man, the true forger of his destiny, understands that the only way to make the world sing is to sit in silence, turn his gaze inward, and tune his own consciousness. Everything in the vastness of existence is in a state of vibration, from the most imposing mountain to the most fleeting thought. Nothing rests, everything moves, everything pulses, everything emits a signal. Your body is not a solid and static mass. It is a whirlwind of pulsating energy. But the most powerful vibration you emit does not come from your flesh, but from your state of being. Your frequency is not something as superficial as having optimistic thoughts for 5 minutes a day. You cannot deceive the loom of reality by smiling in the mirror while your interior writhes in anguish. Your frequency is the deep total sum of your rooted beliefs, your unconfessed fears, your repressed traumas, and your dominant emotions. It is the invisible scent that your spirit exhales every second. If you spend your days obsessed with bills you cannot pay, or if you look at the successful with envy, you are tuning your strings to lack. If you walk with hunched shoulders feeling less than others and harbor a deep terror of failure, you are tuning the strings of your lute to the scale of fear and scarcity. Your vibration is low, dense, and heavy, and according to the law of resonance, that vibration travels through the ether of the universe seeking its equal. The note of fear strikes against the walls of existence and vibrates exclusively the events, people, and circumstances that share that same scale of terror and scarcity. That is why tragedy seems to attract more tragedy. That is why the man who fears being betrayed inevitably attracts the betrayer into his life. That is why the person who lives terrified of poverty finds unexpected expenses and closed doors at every corner. The universe is not punishing him. It is simply returning to him the impeccable echo of his own song. It is responding to his resonance. Third, the beggar's friction and the illusion of effort. Contemporary culture worships physical effort, sacrifice, and fierce struggle. We have been conditioned to believe that the universe is a battlefield where only those who push hardest survive. The individual who works to exhaustion, who does not sleep, who crawls through the mud of daily life trying to punch the world is glorified. This is the philosophy of friction. It is the dance of the beggar trying to steal a piece of bread. When you operate from friction, you believe that your goal, abundance, peace, greatness, is separate from you, at a great distance, and that you must reach it through fatigue. But by believing that the goal is separate from you, your internal state is that of not possessing. Your central vibration is lack. And when lack is the seed, physical effort, no matter how titanic, will only produce fruits of scarcity and exhaustion. The fisherman who casts his nets in a desert of sand can work with discipline. He can sweat from dawn to dusk and bleed from the effort of pulling the ropes, but he will never catch a fish. His effort is useless because he is not in resonance with the water. Physical effort devoid of internal alignment is an arrogant rebellion against the laws of nature. It is the dog biting the reflection in the water. The sovereign does not reject action in the material world, but understands that action is secondary. Action is only the vehicle through which the already established vibration manifests. If you have not tuned your lute, every action you undertake will be contaminated by doubt and resistance. You will generate enemies, raise suspicions, ruin businesses through impatience, and scare away those who could help you, because your spiritual scent smells of desperation. Magnetic need is the greatest repellent in the universe. Everything you pursue with desperation flees from you at the same speed. Money flees from the desperate. Love flees from the dependent. Power flees from the insecure. The very act of desperately needing something is an undeniable declaration to the cosmos that you consider yourself unworthy and empty. And the echo responds to you with majestic fidelity, delivering more emptiness. To claim your sovereignty, you must let go of the weapons of friction. You must abandon the posture of the beggar who beats the doors of heaven with bloodied hands. The universe does not bow before the slaves who fear it. The universe surrenders before the kings who know its language. 5. The inner silence, the tuner's workshop. The great question that every initiate asks at this point is this: if I have spent my whole life tuned to the frequency of scarcity, fear, and pain, how do I alter my own resonance? How do I stop emitting the song of fear and begin to sing the melody of sovereigns? The answer is not found in accumulating more external knowledge, nor in attending noisy seminars, nor in repeating hollow phrases without feeling them. The alchemical transformation of your vibration requires you to enter the most sacred and solitary workshop of existence, inner silence. To change the music of your life, you must first stop the deafening noise that governs you. The human mind, in its uneducated state, is a torrent of random thoughts, a storm of past worries and future anxieties. It is a market of thieves where every thought steals a bit of your vital energy. If you try to impose a new frequency of abundance on that sea of chaos, the new note will be swallowed by the din. You must learn to sit in absolute immobility, withdraw from the world and its constant stimuli, turn off the screens, the voices of others, and, what is most difficult, silence your own internal executioner. In the darkness of that silence, in the stillness of your own presence, is where the tuning of the lute occurs. Tuning your consciousness means deliberately cultivating, with an iron discipline, the emotion and certainty of the desired state before it has appeared in the material world. It means invoking the majesty of opulence, peace, and power in the exact center of your chest, and allowing that feeling to expand through every cell of your body like a wave of purifying heat. You do not do it to deceive yourself, nor in an act of vain illusion. You do it because you understand that imagination sustained by intense emotion is not a fantasy. It is a superior spiritual reality that is emitting waves of probability into the ether. You sit in your solitude, close your eyes to the appearance of a hostile world, and decide by an act of pure will to feel complete. You feel the heavy and calm security of the man who has already crossed the abyss and reached his throne. You taste the relief of battles already won. You breathe with the slowness and depth of one who knows he has nothing to prove to anyone. When you manage to sustain this radiant stillness, your vibration changes. The tension of fear leaves your shoulders. The urgency disappears. Desperation evaporates, replaced by a tactical apathy toward the minor dramas of the world. You become heavy, serene, and lethally magnetic. You have adjusted the pegs of your instrument. The value of disdain for the past echo. One of the most critical and dangerous moments on the sovereign's path occurs just after having changed his inner tuning. You have withdrawn into silence. You have tuned your consciousness to the frequency of abundance and nobility. You open your eyes, go out into the world, and the external reality still looks exactly the same. Your bank account is still meager. Your problems still seem to be there, and the world has not transformed into gold before your eyes. It is here that the weak of spirit and the dilettantes give up. They look at the environment, smile cynically, and say, "I knew it. This vibration thing is a myth. Material reality is the truth." Immediately they slacken the strings of their lute, fall back into the mud of victimhood, and resign themselves to their fate. But the initiate who understands the hidden laws of the cosmos is not deceived by the illusion of the physical senses. The initiate knows that matter is dense and heavy. He knows that material reality is slow. What you are seeing around you today, your house, your status, your problems, is not your present vibration. It is the echo of your past vibration. It is dead light. When you emit a sound in an immense mountain canyon, the echo does not return to you in the same millisecond. It travels, strikes the rock walls, and then returns to your ears. The physical world you inhabit today is the echo of the beliefs, fears, and words you emitted weeks, months, or years ago. It is the condensation into matter of your old music. The sovereign looks at the ashes of his past life with tactical disdain. He does not become enraged against the echo. He does not embrace it. He simply ignores it. He knows he cannot erase the sound that was already emitted and is now bouncing against the walls of the world, but he has absolute control over the note he is pulsing in this exact instant. While the world around you collapses or appears stagnant, your only duty, your only sacred obligation, is to maintain the new tuning. Hold the note of majesty without blinking. Walk through the ruins of your past with the unshakable posture of an emperor, knowing your new melody has begun its journey. The law of resonance is not a poetic suggestion. It is not a metaphor. It is a physical law, cold and absolute. It is as non-negotiable as the law of gravity. If you tune a lute to the note kung, the other kung string will vibrate. There is no margin for error. There is no possibility that the wrong string will sound. When you purify yourself of need, when you annihilate the panic in your chest and stabilize yourself in the frequency of silent power, the universe has no choice. The circumstances of life, which seem like capricious entities, are actually docile instruments waiting for the right vibration to activate. Suddenly, without violent effort, without pleas and without cunning manipulations, the world begins to bend around you. The calls you were waiting for arrive at the perfect moment. The doors that once crushed your fingers now open wide before your presence. People on your wavelength cross your path. They seem like miracles fallen from heaven, when in reality they are the mathematical consequence of your own tuning. Obstacles dissolve because you no longer find resistance. You are swimming in the direction of the current of your own elevated energy. You stop being the leaf blown by the chaotic wind of existence. You become the wind itself, dictating the climate of your destiny. Understand this with the force of an anvil strike. The world will never give you what you desire from desperation. The world will only give you, inexorably, a perfect reflection of what you assume as your essential nature. Chapter 2: The Obsidian Mirror. The external world is a silent canvas. It possesses no voice to curse you nor hands to crown you. It only has the polished surface of a calm lake, waiting for you to lean in to return to you, with perfect cruelty, the gaze that you yourself offer it. The Sovereign's Codex. Since the dawn of time, humanity has walked upon the face of the earth wearing heavy iron armor, The ordinary man rises every morning convinced that he has been thrown into a hostile battlefield, a wild and unpredictable territory inhabited by enemy forces, alien wills and ruthless circumstances that conspire to steal his peace. Under this spell of separation, the human being lives on the defensive. He fights against the economy, argues with his fellow men, fights for a crumb of affection, and faces with his fists a destiny that seems to mock his efforts. He considers that the world is an independent entity, a capricious monster he must tame or defeat to survive. And so the life of the uninitiated man is consumed in perpetual exhaustion. He fights until his hands bleed and his spirit withers, believing that the war is out there. But ancestral wisdom, that which has been kept secret in the most inaccessible sanctuaries and in the most hermetic texts of antiquity, reveals to us a truth so overwhelming that the weak mind prefers to reject it before assuming its weight. The external world does not exist as an independent force. The material reality that surrounds you lacks its own will. It has no intentions of harming you, nor plans to make you happy. Everything you see, every person who crosses your path, every betrayal you suffer, and every triumph you celebrate is nothing more than the reflection projected onto an immense obsidian mirror. In this chapter, we are going to destroy the illusion of external combat. We are going to disarm the tired warrior within you to erect the monarch. You will understand that the sword and the shield are useless when your only enemy is your own reflection, and you will learn the supreme art of cleaning your own face to force the entire universe to smile at you. The Temple of the Thousand Mirrors. To illustrate the blindness in which humanity dwells, the ancient Zen masters related a story that has survived the passage of millennia due to the immaculate purity of its truth. High on a sacred mountain, hidden among the mist and centennial pines, stood an extraordinary place known as the Temple of the Thousand Mirrors. Its interior was not adorned with tapestries or statues of deities. Instead, every wall, every column, the floor and the ceiling were covered with perfectly polished mirrors. One day, a stray dog, hungry, mistreated by life and full of rage, climbed the mountain and entered the temple. Upon crossing the threshold, the dog looked around. Suddenly he tensed up. He saw 1,000 dogs surrounding him. Full of fear and prepared to defend his life, the dog showed his teeth and let out a threatening growl. Immediately, the 1,000 dogs surrounding him showed their fangs and growled at him with the same ferocity. Seized by panic, the dog began to bark in desperation, spinning around, snapping at the air. The 1,000 dogs responded with deafening barks and identical attacks. The animal fought with all his might against that invisible army, believing that he was fighting for his survival. The next morning, the monks of the temple found the dog dead in the center of the hall, victim of a lethal exhaustion, having fought until his last breath against his own reflections. Weeks later, a second dog climbed the mountain. This was a well-fed dog, of a docile spirit and a joyful heart. Upon entering the temple, he saw 1,000 dogs looking at him. Confident and happy to find so much company, the animal wagged his tail with enthusiasm. Instantly, 1,000 dogs returned the greeting, wagging their tails with equal joy. The dog panted with satisfaction, did little playful jumps, and saw how 1,000 dogs celebrated with him in a dance of perfect harmony. After a while, the animal left the temple with a light step, convinced that the whole world was a wonderful paradise inhabited by friendly creatures. The temple never changed. The temple was not good or bad. The temple simply was. It lacked moral attributes. Its only function, implacable and non-negotiable, was to return the exact image of whoever crossed its doors. To the neutrality of the stage. That temple of 1,000 mirrors is existence itself, the matter that makes up your daily reality, your businesses, your bank account, your family, your loves, and your failures, is completely neutral. It is clay without form. It is polished quicksilver waiting passively for you to imprint a meaning upon it. The human being who ignores this law walks through life like the first dog. He carries in the depths of his soul unhealed wounds, beliefs of unworthiness, fear of scarcity, and a deep resentment. His internal posture is that of a beggar on the defensive, and when he enters the great temple of the world has no other mathematical option than to return the image of his own terror. If a man believes, in the darkest part of his being, that money is difficult to get and people are greedy, the obsidian mirror will capture that belief. And it will project into his life debtors, scammers, failed businesses, and tyrant bosses. The man seeing this landscape will be filled with righteous indignation, will lift his fist to the sky and say, "I knew it. The world is a miserable place." He does not realize that the world is not miserable. The world is simply a servant, a loyal servant that is giving him the reason. Your personal relationships are the clearest and often the most painful mirrors of this temple. We believe that we fall in love with other people because of their way of being, but in the most subtle spheres of the spirit, we attract those who fit perfectly with our image of ourselves. If in your interior you consider yourself of little value, if you do not respect yourself and fear being abandoned, the great mirror of the universe will select, among thousands of travelers, that person who possesses the exact capacity to ignore you, mistreat you, or abandon you. And that person will interpret their role to perfection, not because they are essentially evil, but because you, in an unconscious way, have handed them a theatrical script that says, "Please treat me badly, because that way I will be able to confirm what I think of myself." The partner who betrays you, the partner who steals from you, and the friend who envies you are not cosmic accidents nor punishments from the divinity. They are impeccable emissaries of your own internal state. They are actors in your play, and to become enraged with the actor for reading the lines you wrote is the definition of madness. Third, the sterile cleaning of the glass. The madness of the inertial man reaches its climax in the way he tries to solve his problems. Imagine a man who gets up in the morning, walks to the bathroom, and looks in the mirror. He discovers that he has a huge and ugly coal stain on his cheek. The man is horrified. His instinctive reaction is not to bring his hands to his face to wash himself, but rather he takes a wet rag, clenches his teeth, and begins to rub the glass of the mirror furiously. He rubs the glass with rage, trying to erase the stain from the mirrored surface. He screams in frustration. His fingers cramp, the glass screeches, but no matter how much effort he invests nor how much he cries out in impotence, the stain is still there, returning his gaze with indifference. This absurd scene, which seems laughable to us, is the daily tragedy in which humanity lives submerged. What is trying to change your partner through shouting, manipulations, and demands? It is rubbing the mirror. What is trying to earn more money by working 20 hours a day in a job you detest, feeling miserable and poor in your interior? It is rubbing the mirror with desperation. What is changing cities, countries, or professions, believing that by escaping from a place your problems will disappear, only to discover months later that the same anguish has followed you there? It is changing mirrors, but carrying the same stain on your face. The effort directed at forcing the physical world, without there being a previous and profound transformation of the spirit, is the punishment of Sisyphus. It is an absolute exhaustion, a leak of vital energy that ends in resentment and illness. The material reality is dense, heavy, and stubborn. If you try to bend it with your fists, you will break your knuckles against the rock. The sovereign, the knower of the occult arts of manifestation, never fights against the reflected image. The sovereign stops, lowers his arms, smiles at the illusion of the glass, and brings his hands to his own face. He cleans his consciousness, washes his beliefs with the water of truth, transmutes his scarcity into internal opulence, and then, without making the slightest physical effort, looks again. And as if by magic, the mirror clears. The stain disappears from the partner, from the business, and from destiny. The exterior surrenders. 5. The encounter with the shadow. To wash the inner face, we must descend into the caverns of the soul and face a fundamental concept that the great sage Carl Jung called the shadow. The shadow is composed of all those fragments of ourselves that we have rejected, repressed, or denied for fear of not being loved by society. Our wild instincts, our veiled selfishness, our desire for power, and surprisingly, also our brightest light and our most sublime talents often lie locked in that inner dungeon because we feared being judged for them. But the universe, in its infinite search for balance and totality, does not allow anything to remain hidden forever. What you refuse to see inside you, The Obsidian mirror will project to you, gigantic and monstrous, in the people who surround you, to force you to look at it. This is known as the law of projection. Pay close attention to the following, for it is the chisel that will break your emotional chains. That which most irritates you, that which produces a visceral reaction of hate, rejection, or disgust in another person, is irremediably an aspect of yourself that you refuse to accept. If you become disproportionately enraged before an arrogant person who boasts of his achievements, stop your anger. The mirror is talking to you. It does not bother you, his arrogance. It bothers you, your own shadow. Perhaps you have been repressing your desire to shine all your life, forcing yourself to be falsely humble to please others. The freedom of that arrogant man to shine without asking for forgiveness hits your repression. It shows you what you forbid yourself to be. If a lazy and careless person gets on your nerves, the mirror is showing you your own internal tyrant, the one who forces you to be perfect and does not allow you to rest for a single instant. You hate the laziness of the other because you secretly envy their capacity to do nothing and not feel guilt. The enemy, the one you considered your antagonist and your greatest misfortune, is in reality your highest teacher. He comes dressed as an executioner, but his true sacred mission is to point out exactly in what part of your soul you still carry chains. While you judge the teacher and attack him, you will be condemned to repeat. You will repeat the lesson. The mirror will send you again and again with different faces and different names, the same type of abusive, lying, or cowardly person, until you finally understand the message. The pain and the friction with others will end the exact day in which, instead of pointing the accusing finger, you bow. You bow your head, look at your own darkness and say, I understand. This that hurts me in you dwells in me. I forgive myself for it. I integrate it into my being, and I take away the power it had over me. In the instant that integration occurs in the crucible of your consciousness, the law of resonance annuls the contract. The toxic person will distance themselves from your life in a natural way, without dramas or conflicts, because you no longer have the hook in your interior where they can hang their darkness. The teacher leaves the classroom when the student has passed the exam. The art of impassive contemplation. Reaching this degree of mastery requires abandoning the role of victim forever. It requires a courage that the majority of human beings do not possess. It is immensely easier, more comfortable, and more seductive to blame the government, blame the economy, blame your parents, or blame luck for your miseries. The role of victim grants you the cheap compassion of other slaves, but the monarch does not seek compassion, he seeks absolute power, and the price of absolute power is total responsibility. From this moment on in your evolution, you must establish in your life the art of impassive contemplation. When the three-dimensional world hits you with adverse news, when a project collapses in front of your eyes, or when a betrayal knocks on your door, you are strictly forbidden from reacting with the fury of the first dog in the temple. You are forbidden from rubbing the mirror. You will stop. You will breathe with the heavy calm of one who knows the trick of the illusion. You will absorb the blow without breaking your posture, and you will ask yourself the only question that matters in the realm of metaphysics. What part of my being, what hidden fear, what unresolved doubt in my own interior architecture has summoned this reflection so that it materializes in front of me? You will not look for excuses. You will look for the root in the earth of your own spirit. Perhaps you discover that business failed because, deep down, you felt terror of success and the responsibilities that it entailed. Perhaps you discover that person lied to you because you had been lying to yourself for months about how unhappy you were by their side, and the universe only externalized the farce. When you find the splinter in your own foot and extract it, the wound of the world heals by itself. This is the secret of the great alchemists, the true builders of realities. It is not that they do not have problems, it is that they have stopped treating the problems as real, heavy, and solid entities. They have understood that the obstacles are holograms of smoke, formed by the light of their own internal projector. If the projector of your mind throws images of opulence, nobility, dignity, peace, and unconditional love, the immense obsidian mirror of the universe will have no other choice but to curve the light, reorganize the particles, and weave around you a tapestry of palpable riches, loyal friends, and unstoppable triumphs. First, the assumption of the monarch. Strip yourself right now of your iron armor. It is heavy, it is rusted by the tears of the past, and it is of no use to you in this new level of consciousness. There are no more battles to fight in the streets of the material world. The external warfields have been closed. The only glorious conquest that remains for you to undertake is the conquest of the kingdom that dwells behind your own eyes. The next time you walk among the crowd, do not see strangers, do not see threats, do not see scarcity. Look around you with the deep mercy and the majesty of a king who contemplates his own castle. Every face that returns a smile to you is a confirmation of your own light. Every harmonic touch with existence is an applause from the cosmos for your inner work. And when darkness tries to peek out, when the world seems to show you its fangs, do not growl back. Smile. Smile with the peaceful and cold arrogance of one who knows that the monster on the other side of the glass has no breath, nor claws, nor life of its own. Wash your face, purify your soul, and sit on the throne to observe how the entire universe hurries to clean itself to be worthy of reflecting your greatness. Chapter 3. The Magnetism of the Chest. Close your eyes for an instant and contemplate the daily tragedy of modern humanity. Observe the man who rises at dawn, stands before the mirror of his bedroom, and, obeying the empty doctrines of contemporary positive thinking, begins to recite a rosary of luminous affirmations. I am rich, I am prosperous, I am invincible, he repeats. He repeats with tight lips and a tense gaze. His rational mind is formulating the correct words. His intellect has drawn the map toward greatness. However, beneath that mask of prefabricated optimism, in the exact center of his chest, nests a silent monster. While his lips pronounce the word wealth, his stomach contracts from the terror. He feels terror for the debts that accumulate on his table. While his throat declares, I am invincible, a frozen knot of anxiety suffocates his breath, reminding him of his deep sense of smallness and fragility before the world. That man goes out into the street believing that he has invoked abundance, but at the end of the day he returns. He returns defeated, betrayed by life, with empty pockets and a withered spirit. And in his desperation, he asks himself why the universe has turned its back on him, if he did everything that his intellect dictated to him. The answer contains the most devastating secret of inner alchemy. The mind does not possess the necessary gravity. The mind does not possess the gravity to drag matter. The intellect by itself is sterile. It is a brilliant architect who draws perfect plans on paper, but who lacks the fire, the steel, and the brute force to raise a single marble column. Thought grants direction, but it is the deep emotion, the state embodied in the entrails and chest. It is the feeling that exerts the magnetism. It is the feeling that possesses the gravitational force capable of curving reality and forcing miracles to precipitate upon your life. If your mind screams for salvation, but your chest is contracted by the terror of ruin, you are living in the abyss of incoherence, and the universe, which is nothing more than a mirror of your most genuine state, will ignore the lies of your mind and will faithfully respond to the terror of your chest, delivering more ruin to you. In this chapter, we will abandon the cold refuge of the intellect to descend to the volcanic core of your being. You will learn to tame the magnetism of your chest and to forge the coherence of feeling, the sacred art of aligning your mental compass with the winds of your heart, transforming your body into an inescapable magnet for greatness. The parable of the rainmaker. To illustrate the supremacy of the internal state over external circumstances, the sages of antiquity preserved one of the deepest and most disturbing stories of tribal tradition. They say that in a remote region, an implacable drought had devastated the land for months. The rivers had turned into cracks of dry mud, the crops had turned into dust, and the cattle died under a fire sun. The inhabitants of the village, prey to panic and desperation, tried everything within their reach. They dug deeper wells, but only found stone. The local priests performed frenetic dances, sang prayers to the sky and offered sacrifices to the gods, begging for compassion. But the sky remained like an impenetrable bronze vault without a single cloud. At the edge of starvation, the elders of the town decided to send messengers to the distant mountains to seek a legendary shaman, known simply as the Rainmaker. Days later, A frail old man, dressed in rags and with a serene gaze, arrived at the village. The inhabitants received him with feverish expectation, waiting for him to perform magic rites, to raise his arms to the sky or to pronounce secret spells. However, the old man did not look at the sky, nor did he pronounce a single word. He simply asked to be left alone in a small hut on the outskirts of the town. He requested that they bring him a bowl of water and a little bread each day, without interrupting him. The first day, nothing occurred. The sun continued scorching the earth. The second day, the heat became even more suffocating, and doubt began to eat away at the villagers. They thought that the old man was a fraud, but at the dawn of the fourth day, the air changed. An unusual freshness caressed the skin of the inhabitants. The sky darkened suddenly, clouds of a deep and heavy grey swirled over the village, and thunder made the earth tremble. Immediately, a torrential rain, sweet and saving, began to fall, soaking the fields and filling the rivers. The entire village exploded in joy. The elders ran toward the hut of the rainmaker, who was calmly coming out through the door, collecting his few belongings. They prostrated themselves before him and asked him, "Master, what kind of powerful magic did you use? What dances did you do in the darkness? What secret words did you say?" The old man looked at them with a deep compassion and responded, "I did not make it rain. I do not have the power to govern the sky nor to move the clouds." The villagers, confused, claimed, "But then, what did you do during these 3 days in the hut?" "When I arrived at your village," explained the old man with a soft and firm voice, "I immediately felt the disharmony. The fear, the desperation, and the chaos that inhabited the hearts of all of you floated in the air like a poison. Upon coming into contact with your village, I myself became disharmonized. My spirit was filled with the same restlessness that afflicts you." The old man paused, letting his words sink into the soul of those present, and concluded, "So I locked myself in the hut, not to change the weather, but to change myself. I sat in absolute silence. I found the terror in my chest and I calmed it. I ordered my thoughts, soothed my heart, and returned my spirit to its natural path of peace. And once I was again in deep harmony, in the correct order of being, and nature simply accompanied me. To the abyss of incoherence. This parable contains the supreme law of vital magnetism. The rainmaker understood that one cannot fix the world from interior disharmony. One cannot manifest rain from the desperation of drought, nor can one manifest wealth from the panic of poverty. The drama of the human being is that he lives divided. He is a kingdom in civil war. His intellect looks toward the north, desiring nobility and abundance. But his emotional body, forged in years of suffering, rejection, and trauma, looks toward the south, constantly waiting for betrayal and catastrophe. To this internal war, we call the incoherence of feeling. When the sails of your ship point toward a destination, but the underwater current of your emotions pulls violently in the opposite direction, the ship does not move forward. It spins upon itself in a whirlpool of frustration until the masts break. Pay attention to how your own chest operates in the crucial moments of your life. When you are about to sign a vital contract, when you are going to start a new work, or when you face the being you love. What are you really feeling beneath the surface of your words? If you speak of success, but in your entrails you feel the frenetic beat of doubt. If you try to love, but your chest is armored by the fear of being hurt, that underground emotion is the true signal that you are emitting toward the loom of reality. The universe ignores your rehearsed smile and reads the contracture of your stomach. The universe listens to the language of the blood, not that of the tongue. Emotions are not ethereal psychological phenomena nor poetic weaknesses. They are gravitational weights. Chronic sadness, the terror of loss, bitter envy and anxiety are dense emotions. They have the texture of mud and the weight of lead. When you harbor these emotions in a habitual way, your entire being becomes heavy, attracting toward you circumstances just as dark and suffocating. On the contrary, unshakable certainty, deep gratitude, the peace of the monarch and the peaceful arrogance of those who know that their destiny belongs to them are emotions of an irresistible magnetic force. They elevate your being, purify your presence, and generate a field of attraction so colossal that opportunities gravitate to you. 3. The trap of desire and the disease of hope. To master the magnetism of the chest, we must first extirpate one of the most subtle and dangerous poisons that has infected humanity: the exaltation of desire and hope. They have taught you that to get something great, you must desire it with all your strength. They have told you that you must have an insatiable hunger. They told you that you must crave the goal until your bones ache, and that the hope of a better tomorrow is the virtue of noble men. From inner alchemy and sovereign mastery, this is a lethal error. Desperate desire is not a creative force. It is a confession of lack. When you desire something vehemently, it is a signal of emptiness. The deep signal that your heart is emitting toward the infinite is, I do not have it. I am empty. I lack this to be complete. And as the law of resonance is infallible, the universe captures that signal of emptiness and returns to you more emptiness. It keeps you in a perpetual state of desiring, because that is the frequency. The object of your desire will always be a step away, fleeing from you, repelled by your very need. Hope is equally treacherous. The man who hopes that things improve is a man who doubts. Hope implies that you do not have control, that you are at the mercy of capricious forces, and that maybe, just maybe, tomorrow you will not suffer. Hope is the consolation of the slave who looks through the window of his cell. The true sovereign, the forger of realities, does not desire and does not hope. The sovereign assumes and possesses. Save the lead of certainty and the anatomy of the monarch. Supreme magnetism is not achieved through hyperactive euphoria, nor by jumping with joy imagining that you have won a battle. Euphoria is an emotion of the mind that is still surprised by its own good luck. It is unstable and volatile. The emotional state that you must cultivate in your chest is what we will call heavy certainty. Imagine a true king of ancient lineage sitting on his throne contemplating his vast domains. Observe the physiology of his power. The king is not euphoric nor altered because the palace belongs to him. He does not wake up every morning screaming with emotion for being the king. Nor is he anxious nor crossing his fingers. The king inhabits a state of bored, deep and absolute peace. He knows that the lands are his. He knows that his word is the law. This conviction does not generate startles in him. It generates an immense relaxation. His chest expands in a natural way. His breathing is slow, diaphragmatic and paused. His presence is silent, but it radiates an unbearable weight for the weak. That heavy certainty is the emotion of consummated possession. When you manage to turn off the noise of your fearful mind and, in the silence of your intimacy, you invoke the sensation that your great dream is no longer a dream, but a consummated fact. When you can feel in your veins the pure relief that the war ended, and you came out victorious, then you have lit the true magnetic forge of your chest. You have decreed before the abyss that you are no longer the seeker, but the owner. In the millisecond in which that heavy certainty is anchored in your heart, desperation evaporates. The anxiety for the how or the when will disappear, because no one waits with anxiety for the arrival of something that they already have in their hands. A tactical and majestic indifference envelops you, and it is in this precise state of surrender and silent possession where the magic occurs. By there being no friction of need, by there being no thermal resistance in your spirit, the walls of the three-dimensional world collapse and matter hurries to rearrange itself to justify and materialize the state of king that you have already assumed in the darkness of your consciousness. The art of transmutation. Breathing the terror. Theory is beautiful when the waters of life are calm, but the true test of the sovereign occurs in the middle of the storm. The day will come, inevitable and necessary, when the external world strikes you with cruelty. A betrayal, a bankruptcy, the rejection of society or the threat of ruin will plant themselves before your door. In that moment, your biology will react. The ancient animal that inhabits you will wake up. You will feel the frozen lash of panic run down your spine, your stomach will close, and your heart will pump the frenetic rhythm of survival. In this state, you are emitting pure destructive static. If you allow this terror to govern your chest, you will collapse a catastrophic reality around you in a matter of days. The ordinary man, before this terror, tries to flee. He turns on screens to distract himself, takes refuge in vices, seeks the company of others to complain and receive pity, or tries to drown the fear. He tries to drown it with a forced and false positive thought that only increases his anguish. The alchemist monarch does not flee. The monarch understands that the energy of terror is one of the most potent forces in the universe, simply spinning in the incorrect polarity. One cannot destroy that energy, but one can transmute it. When fear floods your chest, you must execute the maneuver of voluntary immersion. You will lock yourself in a room and sit in silence. You will not try to think of anything beautiful. You will not try to deny the fear. You will dive directly into the physical sensation of the terror that oppresses your chest. You will observe it with the coldness of a scientist contemplating a storm. You will breathe deeply, carrying the air directly toward that knot of pain. At first it will burn. The mind will scream at you to get up and run, but you will maintain your position. You will keep breathing, enveloping the fear with the immensity of your consciousness. You will demonstrate to your own body that you are the master, and that knot of energy is only a temporary visitor. By offering no resistance, by not judging the emotion nor fleeing from it, the terror exhausts its fuel. Its fire goes out for lack of friction, and suddenly you will feel how the knot of steel begins to dissolve. It softens, expands, and transforms into a strange and luminous peace. You have achieved transmutation. You have taken the densest lead of panic and turned it into the pure gold of unshakable calm. You have domesticated the dragon, and you have drunk its fire. When you get up from that chair, the external problem will still be there, but you will no longer be the terrified victim. You will be the master of the game. You will approach the crisis with a sharp mind and a serene heart, and the solution will sprout before you with an ease that will humiliate your adversaries. Vis, the irradiation of the sovereign and the surrender of the environment. The constant practice of the coherence of feeling, this unshakable marriage between a clear mind and a chest anchored in the certainty of victory, produces an effect of irradiation that drastically alters the environment you step on. Your physical presence begins to emit an aura of peaceful authority. The people around you, submerged in their own fears and neuroses, will instinctively detect that you do not belong to their flock. You will not have to raise your voice to be heard. You will not have to boast of your achievements to be respected. You will not need to manipulate nor beg to obtain what is yours by right. When you enter a room, people will feel the gravitational weight of your silence. Trivial discussions will go out. Lies will vanish on the lips of those who try to deceive you, unable to sustain the gaze before a man who has unified his being. Business opportunities, loyal allies, and wealth will slide toward you. They will move with the naturalness of water flowing toward the sea, seeking the refuge of a stable frequency in a maddened world. The Herculean effort has ended. You have stopped chasing butterflies with a broken net in the middle of the jungle. You have understood that the true work consists in cultivating the most beautiful garden. It is about the garden in the center of your own chest. When the interior garden flourishes, free of the weeds of fear and the brambles of desperation, the butterfly will come by itself to perch on your shoulder, obeying the silent and irresistible call of life itself. Walk away now from the sterile battle. Enter the hut of your own soul. Appease the storm of your fears and order the kingdom of your feeling. Become the maker of your own reign and contemplate, with your chest swollen with heavy certainty, how the entire existence wonderfully reorganizes itself to accompany you in your ascent toward immortality. Chapter 4. The Art of Surrender. The Strength of Detachment and the Supreme Paradox of Possession. He who attempts to govern the world through force ends up being a slave to his own chains. He who abandons the need to possess discovers, with amazement, that the entire world belongs to him. Taoist Wisdom. Contemplate for a moment the man who walks through life consumed by desperate ambition. Observe his abrupt movements, his anxious gaze, the perpetual tension that dwells in his jaw and in his shoulders. That man has fixed his gaze on an objective, an elusive love, an exact sum of gold, a throne of social recognition. He has decided that his happiness, his worth, and his very life depend absolutely and tyrannically on achieving it. That man pursues his desire with the fury of a hungry hunter. He runs after his goals, watches every detail, manipulates those around him, and does not sleep, terrified by the possibility of losing control. He feels that if he loosens his grip for a single second, the universe will snatch away his booty. And yet the tragedy that envelops this man is that the more he pursues his longing, the more it seems to move away toward the horizon. The more he tightens the embrace on that which he loves, the faster he suffocates and destroys it. His own desperation engenders a storm of resistance that repels everything noble and great that he tries to reach. This is the drama of attachment. It is the arrogant and fallacious belief that anxious effort and absolute control are the engines of destiny. Ancient wisdom woven in the sanctuaries of silence teaches us a law. It is a law that makes the foundations of the rational mind tremble. The supreme paradox of existence dictates that you can only attract toward you, with an inescapable gravity, that which you are willing to lose without shedding a single tear. In this chapter, we are going to dismantle the prison of attachment. We are going to teach you to let go of the rusted reins with which you try to tame the infinite, so that you discover the immense and terrifying power of the art of surrender. You will learn that surrendering is not kneeling before the enemy, but giving way to the titanic forces of the universe to fight the battle in your name. To the parable of the hunter and the monkey. To illustrate the invisible prison in which the attached man dwells, the ancient masters of the Tao, acute observers of nature and human foolishness, related an amazing story about the hunters of the oriental jungles. They say that in the dense jungles of Asia, hunters had designed an infallible method to capture the elusive monkeys. They are agile and intelligent creatures that easily escaped from nets and arrows. The method did not require violence, nor weapons, nor exhausting pursuits. It required only using the very nature of the animal's mind against it. The hunter took a large and resistant coconut. He emptied it and tied its shell firmly to a tree trunk. Then he carved a hole in the shell of the coconut, a very precise hole, with the exact and millimetric size for a monkey to insert its open and extended hand, but not an inch wider. Finally, the hunter deposited a handful of sweet and fragrant rice inside the coconut and withdrew to hide among the undergrowth. Soon a monkey, attracted by the irresistible aroma of the delicacy, came down from the branches. He approached the coconut with caution, looked around, and slipped his agile and open hand through the small hole. Upon touching the rice, the monkey was filled with joy. He took a large handful of grains, closing his hand into a fist. But then, when trying to pull out his prize, the drama began. The closed fist, bulky from the handful of rice, was too large to pass back through the narrow hole. The monkey pulled his arm. He pulled with fury, growled, pushed the coconut, screamed with frustration and writhed in pain. He was trapped. The hunter, upon hearing the screams, came out of his hiding place and walked slowly, without any haste, toward the animal. The monkey, seeing his executioner approach, entered an absolute panic. He cried with terror, pulling his arm until his skin tore, knowing that his life was about to end. And here lies the majestic and terrible irony of the parable. The monkey was never really tied to the tree. There were no shackles, there were no locks, there were no chains imprisoning his body. The monkey could be free in any fraction of a second, before the hunter reached him. The absolute and tragically only thing, the thing the monkey had to do to save his life and recover the entire forest, was to open his hand and let go of the rice. But the attachment of the animal was so primitive, his desire to possess that miserable handful of food was so blind and absolute, that he preferred to lose his freedom and his own life rather than let go. The hunter captured him without effort, knowing that the monkey was a prisoner, not of the coconut but of his own closed fist. The anatomy of your closed fist. Listen carefully, for you are that monkey, and the jungle is the material world you inhabit. Every day you walk through the thick forest of existence and find coconuts tied to the trees. That handful of rice that you refuse to let go takes many forms in your life. Sometimes the rice is that partner who no longer loves you, that withered relationship that humiliates and drains you, but to which you cling with claws of steel, crying, "I cannot live without her, I cannot let her go." Sometimes the rice is a business that is failing, or a professional degree that you loathe, but to which you cling for fear of losing your status or your false security. Sometimes the rice is a rigid expectation of what your life should be like at 30, 40, or 50 years old. A youthful fantasy that has not been fulfilled and that tortures you every night in the darkness of your bedroom. You insert your hand into the coconut of your own expectations. You grab that idea with desperate fury. You close your fist and refuse to open it. And when life, the great hunter of destiny, approaches to show you that you are suffering, you scream, cry, complain about your confinement, and curse the sky, asking, "Why am I trapped? Why is life so cruel to me? Why am I not moving forward?" You are not trapped by destiny, nor by the economy, nor by those who hurt you. You are trapped by your absolute refusal to let go of that which no longer serves you. You are a prisoner of your own attachment. Attachment is, at its deepest root, a declaration of extreme distrust toward the immensity of the universe. When you clench your fist around a specific result, you are saying to existence, "I do not trust you. If I let go of this small grain of rice, I believe I will starve. I do not believe there is more food in the forest. I do not believe in my own capacity to find something superior. This is all I deserve." The attached man is a frightened soul who operates from the conviction of scarcity. He believes that miracles are limited and finite resources. For that reason, he suffocates his projects, pursues people until he drives them away, and exhausts his vital energy pulling on an arm stuck in a piece of dead wood. 30. The tyranny of the how and the when. The poison of attachment not only manifests in refusing to let go of the past, but in our neurotic obsession with controlling the future. This is where the human intellect reveals its greatest arrogance. When the initiate in the mysteries of manifestation decrees a life of opulence, peace, or greatness, the fatal error occurs. It occurs milliseconds later. His rational mind, small and limited by past experiences, immediately pulls out a parchment and tries to dictate to the cosmos exactly how and when things should happen. The man decrees wealth, and his intellect adds, "And this wealth must arrive through a promotion in my company next Tuesday." By doing this, you have just built a new coconut and you have just put your hand in it. You have turned a vast ocean of possibilities into a miserable funnel. You have closed the door to thousands of mysterious, fortuitous, and majestic paths that existence had prepared for you, forcing the universe to pass through the eye of a needle. The human mind looks at the world through the keyhole of a door. It sees only a tiny fragment of reality. The loom of the universe, on the other hand, contemplates the entire landscape. It knows the hidden connections, the distant events, and the invisible alliances that escape your understanding. When you demand that your desires materialize through a specific route that you have traced, and you get frustrated when that route is blocked, you are being a blind tyrant. You fill yourself with bitterness because the boss did not give you the promotion on Tuesday, completely ignoring that the universe blocked that promotion on purpose. It was blocked to force you to quit, because there was an empire waiting for you if you only dared to leave that building. The true monarch decrees the destiny, establishes the course, the what, but feels a tactical contempt and a reverential indifference for the how. He knows that the paths of creation are inscrutable. He knows that human logic is too clumsy to organize the dance of the stars. Therefore, the monarch establishes his intention with a will of iron, and then, with the same strength, lets go of the result completely. He abandons the need to control the threads. He withdraws his hands from the loom and allows the supreme weaver to do his work in the shadows. Fervid surrender is not defeat, it is majesty. We thus arrive at the concept most misunderstood by the culture of the inertial warrior, surrender. In the language of ordinary men, to surrender means weakness. It means raising the white flag, falling to one's knees before the enemy and accepting failure. It means that you were defeated in the battle. But in the language of sovereigns and alchemists of the soul, surrender is the highest, most violent and masterful act of power that a human being can execute. Surrender on the path of the Creator is not giving up before the problem, it is giving up before the resistance of your own ego. It is to lay down the weapons of anxiety, of overthinking and of suffocating control. It is to understand that you, as an incarnated individual, do not have to carry the weight of the world on your fragile shoulders. Imagine a king in his palace. If an aqueduct must be built to cross the mountains, the king does not get off the throne. He does not take a pick and a shovel and go to break stone under the scorching sun. If he did, he would not be a king, he would be a worker. The king calls his engineers, dictates the irrevocable mandate that the aqueduct must be built, seals the decree with his ring, and then retires to his chambers to rest and dine. The king surrenders to the process. He absolutely trusts that his authority is sufficient. He does not go every 10 minutes to watch the workers, doubting if they will know how to move the stones. If he did, he would demonstrate that he doubts his own power. You are the monarch of your reality. When you have invoked a goal, when you have tuned your instrument and your chest beats with the heavy certainty of achievement, your next mandatory step is surrender. It is saying out loud, the mandate has been dictated. The forces of existence have been mobilized. It is no longer my job to worry, sweat, or doubt this matter. I deliver the process to the vastness of the ether. By surrendering, you empty yourself of tension, you become light, and it is precisely in that state of supreme relaxation, in that majestic apathy toward temporary setbacks, where you become a perfect channel. Energy flows through you without emotional bottlenecks. The inspiration to take the right step arrives softly, without effort, not as a cry of panic but as an evident and crystalline whisper. Surrender is the litmus test of your faith. He who does not surrender, he who does not let go of control, remains a slave who does not trust in the loyalty of his own kingdom. The magnetism of the void and the open fist. We now enter the climax of this esoteric philosophy, into the precise mechanics that make the material world fall at your feet. Nature abhors a vacuum. This is an undeniable hermetic and physical maxim. When a vacuum is created in the universe, surrounding forces rush with amazing speed and violence to fill that space. When you are attached, when you are full of need, full of anxious desires, full of rigid plans, and full of fear of losing, you are completely saturated. Your cup is overflowing. Your fist is full of rice. There is no space in you for the universe to deposit something new, fresh, and grand. There is no vacuum. The act of detaching yourself is the act of emptying yourself. When you let go of the person who should no longer be in your life, you are not creating a tragedy. You are creating a sacred void. And the universe, in its urgency to fill that space, will send you someone whose presence is truly worthy of the nobility you reside in. When you stop chasing money with the terror of a beggar, and let go of the obsession with every penny, you empty your mind of the concept of scarcity. In that clean and serene space that you leave behind, the universe pours opulence. It is the absolute paradox that destroys common minds. When you need something desperately, you push it away. But at the precise instant in which, with genuine honesty, you feel in the depths of your soul that you do not need that person, that you do not need that deal, and that you are in perfect and unshakable peace with the idea of losing it, then the object runs to you. The object of your desire runs toward you with an almost devoted submission. Detachment grants you the charisma of the gods. It makes you untouchable. No one can manipulate a man who does not fear losing anything. No one can extort a spirit that has let go of the rice and knows that the entire jungle is his home. When you sit down to negotiate with the world from detachment, your posture is that of one who already has everything. If the business does not happen, you smile and leave, knowing that a dozen better opportunities wait in the wings. That attitude of sovereign indifference drives the market crazy and fascinates observers. It fascinates because all human beings are irremediably attracted to the one who asks nothing of them. The world, like the dog in the temple of mirrors, surrenders at the feet of the one who does not draw the fangs of need. Thus, the awakening of the free man. Look at your own hands. Observe in silence the things you clung to for so many years. Feel the deep exhaustion of your white knuckles, tense with the fear that life would steal from you the little you thought you had. That pain you feel in your arm is not the world punishing you. It is your own muscle cramped from refusal. It is cramped by refusing to yield. The great hunter has no intention of devouring you. He is simply the master of existence waiting for you to understand the final lesson. The lesson that says that nothing on this plane belongs to you permanently. Neither wealth, nor honors, nor flesh. You are an eternal traveler crossing the loom of reality, and the only true treasure you will take with you is the mastery of having known how to walk among the flames without burning yourself, of having touched the world without being trapped in it. The time has come to open your hand. I do not ask you to stop loving, nor to stop building, nor to abandon your ambition for greatness. I ask you for something much more difficult and glorious. I ask you to love, to build, and to have ambition with your hands completely open, without ties, without chains. Let go of the handful of rotten rice from yesterday. Let fall the bitter expectations. Let go of your obsession with understanding the future. In the millisecond in which your fingers relax and the hand opens, the arm will come out of the trunk. The panic will disappear. You will breathe the pure air of the free jungle. Chapter 5. The Alchemy of the Word. Since the most remote antiquity, the custodians of occult knowledge have understood a secret that modern man, in his materialistic arrogance, has completely forgotten. They have known that the air we breathe, the prana, the pneuma, the ruach, is not just a mixture of gases that sustains the biology of the body. It is the vital substance. It is the vital substance of creation itself. And when the human being inhales that divine breath, shapes it with his will in the vocal cords, and expels it in the form of sound, he is executing the oldest and most formidable act of magic in the universe. He is speaking. For the ordinary man asleep in the inertia of his routines, words are empty sounds. They are simple tools of exchange, utilitarian noises he employs to describe the weather, to recount the events of the day, or to ask for a piece of bread. The common man believes naively that his words simply describe the reality that his eyes see. But the alchemy of the spirit reveals an overwhelming truth. It reveals a truth that inverts this paradigm completely. Words do not describe reality. Words generate it. Each syllable you pronounce, each sentence you articulate, is not a mere puff of air. It is a vessel charged with vibratory energy, a sharp chisel that sculpts the malleable matter of the physical world. Every time you open your mouth, you are throwing seeds upon the fertile ground of existence. You are emitting decrees that the universe, in its blind obedience, hurries to materialize. In this chapter, we will abandon the empty chatter of the masses to enter the temple of linguistic alchemy. You will discover with amazement, and perhaps with terror, that throughout your life you have been an unconscious black magician, cursing your own destiny with the negligence of your tongue. And you will learn, with the discipline of kings, to purify your verb to convert your voice into a scepter of power, capable of rewriting your history. The parable of the doctor and the skeptic. To understand the visceral and material impact that a simple word possesses, we must go back to the dusty and aromatic bazaars of the ancient Middle East, where healers and sages walked among the crowd. Chronicles tell that in a bustling square in Baghdad, a respected Sufi doctor attended to the sick. His method did not consist solely of administering herbs and ointments, but he sat beside the afflicted, took their hands, and pronounced over them ancient words of encouragement, mantras of peace and blessings of health. The devotion of his patients was absolute, and many claimed to be cured instantly upon hearing his deep voice. One day, a wealthy merchant, famous for his skepticism and his sharp tongue, made his way through the crowd and stood before the healer. With a smile of contempt and arms crossed, the merchant shouted for everyone to hear, "You are a charlatan and a trickster. You deceive these poor ignoramuses, making them believe that the air is valuable. Words are only wind. They have no edge to cut, they have no weight to crush, and they certainly have no power to heal sick flesh. A word is nothing." The murmur of the bazaar stopped. Everyone looked at the doctor, waiting for a theological defense or a philosophical explanation. The Sufi healer raised his gaze and fixed his eyes. He fixed his dark eyes on the merchant, and abandoning his usual kind tone, spat at him with a coldness and a terrifying ferocity. "Shut up, you piece of ignorant scum! You are a fool, a beast without spirit who walks like a man. You are not even worthy of breathing the same air as my patients. Get out of my sight before I send the guards." The effect on the merchant was immediate and devastating. His face turned pale, and then was dyed a crimson red. The veins in his neck swelled like tense ropes. His hands began to tremble with rage. His breathing became erratic. A cold sweat beaded his forehead, and his heart began to beat with the violence of a war drum. Full of rage and about to pounce on the old man, the merchant clenched his fists, unable to articulate a word because of the fury that suffocated him. In that precise instant, the face of the doctor changed. The ferocity disappeared, replaced again by a luminous calm and a smile full of compassion. "To observe your own body, my friend," the healer told him sweetly. "A moment ago you were at peace, and yet it was enough for me to emit a few syllables into the air. A simple invisible breath was enough, for your heart to race, your blood to be poisoned with anger, your hands to tremble, and your entire body to prepare for war. The merchant stopped in his tracks, perplexed. The sage concluded his lesson before the astonished gaze of the square. If a few words of hatred and contempt had the material and biological power to alter your flesh, accelerate your pulse, and destroy your peace in a single second, how do you dare to doubt words of love? Tous, the anatomy of the unconscious curse. The lesson of the healer is an unbreakable physical law. Sound alters matter. Ancient traditions did not need microscopes to know it, but today the hidden geometry of sound demonstrates to us that acoustic vibration organizes form. If you pronounce words of harmony near water or sand, the particles group into beautiful mandalas. If you shout words of hatred and chaos, the structure breaks and becomes deformed mud. Your physical body is a pool of resonant water, and the universe you inhabit is a vast ocean of receptive energy. Given this evidence, let us stop to observe the tragedy of daily human conversation. Listen to what man speaks in the street. Listen in the corners of offices or in the intimacy of his home. 90% of his words are complaints, gossip, criticism, laments, and declarations of scarcity. The common man wakes up, looks at the cloudy sky and decrees, "What a miserable day." He opens his wallet and murmurs, "I never have enough money." He trips and says to himself, "How clumsy I am, I always ruin everything." When speaking with a friend about the success of a third party, he spits with envy, "That one was lucky, but honest people like us will always lose." Each of these phrases is not a simple opinion. In the court of alchemy, every complaint is a self-inflicted curse. It is black magic operating at its lowest and most destructive level. When you affirm that you are clumsy, you are sending a military instruction to your subconscious and to the loom of the world. The universe nods in silence and prepares the next stone in your path so that you trip and confirm your decree. When you declare that you never have money, the ether picks up your vibration of poverty and takes charge of closing the doors of opportunity in front of your nose because it must obey the order of the master. The human subconscious, like the laws of the universe, lacks a sense of humor. It does not understand sarcasm. If you mock yourself saying, "I am an idiot," just to make others laugh, the deep mind registers it as an irrefutable truth and will subtract lucidity, charisma, and genius from you until you become the buffoon that you yourself decreed to be. Every idle word that leaves your lips is a contract that you sign with your own blood. Third, the sacred name and the blasphemy of I am. To purify language, we must address the central pillar of all verbal architecture, the two most sacred, feared, and powerful words that can be pronounced in any language on the planet. The words, I am. In ancient scriptures, when the prophet Moses stood before the burning bush, the voice of fire responded with a formula. It responded with the formula of pure existence, I am that I am. This is not a simple religious anecdote. It is a metaphysical revelation of colossal proportions. I am is the name of the divinity. It is the verb of consciousness manifesting itself. It is the unmoved mover of the universe declaring its own existence. Therefore, every time you open your mouth and pronounce the words I am, you are invoking the creative power of the first cause. You are opening the floodgates of the infinite to give shape to matter. Whatever you place following the phrase I am will inevitably merge with your identity and will condense into your destiny. Understanding this terrifying and sublime power, observe the blasphemy that ordinary man commits daily. When an individual says, I am poor, I am weak, I am sickly, or I am a failure, he is taking the sacred name of the creative force and dragging it through the mud. He is chaining the inexhaustible light of his soul. He chains it to a fleeting state of material misery. You are giving your brain and your reality the inescapable order to manufacture poverty, weakness, and misfortune in your life because you have tied your eternal identity to a temporary suffering. The true initiate, the sovereign who has awakened, never associates the I am. He never associates it to a state of lack. The king understands the vital difference between his identity and his circumstances. If the monarch falls ill, he does not decree, I am a sick man. He declares with detachment, my physical body is going through a temporary purification process. If the monarch goes through a financial bankruptcy, he will never say, I am poor. He will affirm, My coffers are rearranging to receive a greater opulence. He does not deny that a friction exists in the material world, but he refuses roundly and absolutely to tie that friction to his deep identity. The sovereign reserves the use of the I am solely and exclusively to invoke his greatness. In the silence of his interior temple and in the firmness of his public discourse, his decrees are majestic. I am abundance. I am peace. I am the unshakable force of nature. I am the forger of my lineage. IV, the fast of the complaint, the rite of silence. Purifying the verb does not consist solely of learning to say beautiful things. The cleaning begins by the radical extirpation of the poison, and the most destructive poison that corrodes the human spirit is the complaint. A complaint is not a simple observation of a negative fact. A complaint is a lament charged with frustration. It is a declaration of impotence. By complaining, you are confirming to the universe that you do not have control, that you are a victim of circumstances, and that you are willing to give your valuable attention to that which you loathe. Remember always the law of expansion, that in which you deposit your attention and word flourishes. If you complain about the government, prices, the behavior of your spouse, or the fatigue of your body, you are watering the roots of bitterness. You are inviting life to give you more reasons to keep complaining. The initiation ritual of the sages, in the mastery of the verb, begins with the fast of the complaint. The mandate is severe and non-negotiable. For 7 consecutive days you commit to not pronouncing a single complaint. None. Not about the weather, nor about the traffic, nor about your luck, nor about back pain, nor about the people who offend you. If rain ruins your plans, you will not curse the water. You will take an umbrella. If a business fails, you will not sob seeking compassion. You will clench your jaw, analyze the error in silence, and plan the next move. If someone insults you, you will not run to tell the grievance to your friends so they agree with you. You will bury the insult in the silence of your own oblivion. The difficulty of this fast will shatter your ego in the first days. You will discover with horror how much of your life you spend talking about things you loathe. You will feel the physical necessity, almost addictive, to lament. But if you resist, if you keep the door of your lips guarded, a miraculous phenomenon will occur. The vital energy, the spiritual ATP that you use to waste on useless complaints, will begin to accumulate in your chest. You will feel a colossal increase in your power of concentration. By not allowing your strength to escape through the fissure of the complaint, you will become a sealed vessel full of creative power. V, the court of silence and the interior dialogue. The mastery of the external word lacks value if it is not accompanied by the conquest of the darkest and most ungovernable kingdom of all, the mind. The verb is not pronounced solely with the physical tongue. The interior dialogue, that constant murmur that inhabits the vaults of your skull, is the factory where your reality is born. It is of no use for you to smile at the world and say words of success in public if, when you retire to your bedroom, the internal judge takes the mallet and begins to sentence you. You won't make it. It's too late. You were a coward today. Look at the others. They are far ahead of you. If your mouth is the chisel that sculpts the marble, your interior dialogue is the hammer that gives the blows. If the hammer trembles with fear or strikes with rage, the sculpture of your life will be a grotesque monstrosity. You must establish the court of silence within your own head. You have to become an implacable tyrant toward your own limiting thoughts. When the murmur of fear tries to appear in your mind, do not debate with it. Do not try to reason with anxiety. A king does not sit to debate with a frightened peasant shouting in the castle courtyard. The king simply raises his hand and guards silence him. In the instant that you detect a word of weakness, of doubt, or of self-contempt in your mind, you will apply the sword cut. You will order in silence, cancelled, and you will immediately substitute that thought with a decree of majesty. If the thought says, "This is very difficult and I will fail," your court will dictate, "I am the path." Zeus, the vessel of the sovereign, measure your words from this instant as if they were counted diamonds. The weak man speaks without ceasing, filling the air with empty noise, scattering his vital energy in every corner, gossiping about others' lives, and giving opinions on matters he does not understand. The weak man speaks because silence terrifies him. The sovereign, in contrast, manages his syllables with a lethal and majestic economy. Silence is his natural state. It is the refuge where he accumulates the gravity of his presence. And when he finally decides to speak, he does not do it to fill a void, nor to seek approval. He speaks because his word is necessary to build or order chaos. Your voice is the magic instrument that the cosmos gave you to forge your own Eden or dig your own grave. Stop cursing the shadows. Stop justifying your fears out loud. Stop recounting the story of your past miseries. The story you tell about yourself is the cage that keeps you prisoner. Stand up in the center of your life. Close the door to victimhood. Drink from silence until you are full of power, and when you open your lips, let it be only to emit the music of nobility, the certainty of the I am, and the unshakable beauty of the king who has learned to write the script of his own immortality. Your verb is the law, pronounce it with honor. Chapter 6, The Bridge of Ashes. There is a deep and naive dream in the heart of the uninitiated man. When the seeker of truth, tired of his mediocrity, rises in the stillness of his bedroom and decrees with a firm voice a life of wealth, nobility, and greatness, he expects the universe to respond with a gentle path of roses. He imagines that success will descend. He imagines it will descend from the heavens like a gentle rain, that opportunities will knock on his door with delicacy, and that his transition toward power will be a quiet stroll under the sunlight. But existence, in its infinite and terrifying majesty, does not operate under the laws of human comfort. The universe is a colossal architect. The architecture of the divine knows no mercy when it comes to erecting eternal monuments. When you demand that your life rise to the peaks of sovereignty, when you demand that you be given the throne that belongs to you, the universe hears your decree. But the response of the cosmos rarely arrives in the form of a gift wrapped in silk. The response, the vast majority of the time, arrives in the form of an earthquake. It arrives wrapped in fire, in chaos, in sudden losses, and in storms that threaten to strip away your sanity. The weak man, seeing that his world begins to crumble just after having asked for greatness, falls to his knees and raises his fists to the sky. He shouts, "Why do you punish me? I asked for salvation and you send me ruin." He abandons his faith, renounces his power, and flees terrified toward the shadows of his former life, convinced that the alchemy of the spirit is a cruel farce. That man fails because he ignores the fundamental law of transmutation. No higher order can be established. It cannot be established without the absolute demolition of the lower order that preceded it. In this chapter, we are going to enter the purifying flames of the Bridge of Ashes. You will learn to look at the face of chaos without blinking. You will understand that the storm that today raises your attachments is not a blind punishment of fate. It is the impeccable chisel of destiny, releasing the work of art that lives inside you. I, the parable of the implacable sculptor. To understand the sacred violence involved in true transformation, we must remember the story of one of the greatest masters of stone in ancient Rome. They say that an immense block of marble, rustic, dirty, and deformed, had been abandoned for decades in the center of a square. Many stonemasons had approached it, but left. They left claiming that the stone was useless, a useless whim of the earth. One day, a master sculptor, with a sharp gaze and hands calloused by years of trade, stopped in front of the rock. He observed it in silence for a long time, walking around it, caressing the cold stone as if listening to a whisper coming from its entrails. The next day, the master returned with his tools. A boy from the village sat nearby to watch him. The boy expected to see the master caress the stone with sweetness, but he was horrified to witness the spectacle. The sculptor raised a heavy iron mallet and began to strike a huge chisel against the stone with a violence and a savage fury. The blows resonated in the square like thunder. Large fragments of marble flew through the air, crashing against the ground and shattering into pieces. Dust covered the air, and the noise of destruction was deafening. Day after day, the boy saw how the master seemed to take it out on the rock, destroying it without mercy. He was tearing off huge pieces of matter. For the boy's inexperienced eyes, that was not art. It was the annihilation of the stone. The boy stopped going to the square, saddened by the brutality of the process. Months later, he happened to walk near the place. There was no longer the noise of hammers nor clouds of dust. Looking up, the boy was paralyzed by wonder. In the place where the deformed and battered rock once lay, the statue of a majestic lion now stood. Its muscles seemed tense under the stone skin, its mane flowed with a fierce grace, and its gaze instilled reverential respect. It was a work of unattainable perfection. The boy ran toward the sculptor, who was resting in the shade of a portico and with wide eyes asked, "Master, how was it possible? How did you know that magnificent lion was hidden inside that dirty and hard stone?" The master wiped the sweat from his forehead, looked at the boy with a serene smile and replied, "I didn't hide it there. The lion was always inside the marble, waiting for its moment to roar. My only job, the purpose of all those violent blows that scared you so much, was not to create the lion. I only dedicated myself to removing, by force of blows, all the stone that was not the lion." Sirs, the anatomy of chaos, the sacred demolition. Listen with cold blood, for you are that block of marble, and the universe is the master sculptor. When you invoke a life of greatness, when you demand from the depths of your chest that a destiny worthy of a sovereign be given to you, the universe hears and accepts the order. It knows exactly that the majestic lion already dwells inside you. But it also knows that for that lion to see the light of the sun, there are tons of useless stone around you that must be destroyed. And that useless stone is composed of your current mediocre circumstances. They are those lukewarm relationships that suck your energy. It is that secure but suffocating job that steals your hours. It is those destructive habits that keep you tied to laziness. They are those false beliefs of security that you built to protect yourself from the world. When the universe takes its iron mallet to chisel your destiny, the blows hurt. Boy, do they hurt. Suddenly, your partner of years leaves you without a logical explanation. Your safest business goes bankrupt overnight. An intimate friend betrays you. You are fired from that job you depended on to pay for bread. Chaos breaks loose in your life with the fury of a perfect storm. Your rational mind, your ego, which hates uncertainty and loves the comfort of the known, enters into panic. It contemplates the rubble of its life, sees the pieces of marble fly, swallows the dust of destruction, and screams in pain. The ego calls this a tragedy, an injustice, or bad luck. But the spirit, if it has been trained in the true alchemy of existence, understands what is really happening. It is the sacred demolition. If you have asked existence to build a 100-story skyscraper in your life, you cannot expect it to build it on the rotting wooden foundations of the cabin in which you have been living until today. The universe, like an implacable architect, will first send the demolition cranes. It will destroy your cabin. It will knock down the walls of your comfort zone and dig deep into the earth of your soul, causing a terrifying din, only the blind cry for the loss of the rotten cabin. The sovereign smiles through the tears because he knows that the abyss opening in front of his feet is exactly the size of the foundations of the palace on the way. Threat crossing the bridge of ashes. To this period of transition, to this no-man's land that stretches between the loss of your old identity and the materialization of your new glory, the mystics call the Bridge of Ashes. Walking across this bridge is the litmus test of your character. Under your feet, the remains of what you were burn. Behind you, your past is reduced to smoke. And in front of you, the mist of the future has not yet cleared to show you the gates of your new kingdom. It is a period of absolute nakedness, an unbearable vacuum where you feel you have lost everything and have gained nothing yet. In this journey, you will experience the law of detachment. By raising your resonance to become the king of your destiny, your frequency becomes incompatible with much of the world you inhabited. Like oil and water that cannot mix, people who vibrate in fear, scarcity, and victimhood will feel uncomfortable in your presence. Lifelong friends will slowly move away. They might even seek absurd conflicts to justify their departure. Relatives will look at you with suspicion, murmuring that you have changed, that you have become cold or arrogant. Projects that used to flow will suddenly stall, as if an invisible hand had cut the current. The Bridge of Ashes demands that you let them go. The most painful mistake the initiate can make on this bridge is to look back and try to rescue from the flames the people or situations that the universe has decided to burn. If you bend down to pick up the embers of a dead relationship or to try to revive a business that life closed, you will only burn your hands and stop your march. Let the dead wood burn. Let the fire consume what is not worthy of crossing to the other shore. The people who leave in this period are not abandoning you. They are being evacuated by existence to make room for the brilliant minds, loyal allies, and sublime loves that are waiting for you at your new level of consciousness. The Bridge of Ashes does not take anything from you that belongs to you by divine right. It is stripping you exclusively of the dead weight that prevented you from flying. Fivasati, the false tragedy, and the owl's eye. To endure the rawness of the sacred demolition, you must adopt a new way of contemplating the darkness. You must develop what ancient shamanic traditions called the owl's eye. The owl is the bird of wisdom because it has the unprecedented capacity to see with absolute clarity, where other animals only perceive shadows and terror. In the middle of the dark night, the owl distinguishes the truth. Society has conditioned you to judge events through the lens of immediate fear. If you lose money, the tribe surrounds you and says, "What a terrible misfortune, I'm so sorry." If you fail in an endeavor, they offer you pats on the shoulder full of pity. An entire cult has been created around compassion for loss. But the possessor of the owl's eye does not judge loss with pity. The alchemist rises above the social crying, observes the supposed tragedy from above, and understands that the universe has a panoramic view that the human eye lacks. Ask yourself, reviewing the history of your own days, how many times did you cry bitterly for a train you missed, for a job you were kicked out of, or for a love that abandoned you, only to discover, years later, that that painful tragedy was the greatest blessing of your life? How many times did that door closed in your face force you to walk? It forced you toward an open window that led to your true purpose. Life denied you that mediocre job because it knew you were destined to found your own empire. Life plucked that person from your arms because their hidden toxicity would have destroyed your peace in the next decade. The universe is surgical. When it clears something from your path with apparent cruelty, it does so with the precision of a surgeon removing a tumor that you, in your blindness, called my treasure. The owl's eye allows you to look at the present ruin and smile. It allows you to say out loud in the middle of the wake of your old projects, "I don't know how, I don't know why, but if existence has taken this from my hands, it's because my hands needed to be empty to be able to receive the crown I've been claiming." That is the true faith of the sovereign. It is the thermodynamic certainty that chaos is not the end of the story, but the noisy prologue to glory. The art of burning without being consumed. When you are going through this period of purging, when uncertainty knocks on your windows and it seems the whole world has conspired against you, the way you behave will dictate the speed at which you will reach the other shore. The mandate for the Walker of the Ashes is strict. Do not resist the flames. Become fire. If you resist the process, if you cry in the early hours begging for your old comfort to be returned, you will lengthen your stay on the bridge. If you fill yourself with bitterness because things didn't go as your intellect planned, the friction of your resistance will generate more useless suffering. Practicing stoicism is key. It consists of anchoring your feet on the ground, raising your chest, staring at the flames that consume your old securities and saying, "Burn. Burn until nothing but the truth remains. Take everything that is false in my life. Rip off my masks. Take away my need to be approved by cowards. I am willing to lose the world of falsehood." By voluntarily submitting to the destruction of the useless, the fire loses its power to hurt you. You will discover that the pain did not come from the fire itself, but from your desperate effort to protect the things the fire wanted to burn. When you stop protecting the garbage, the fire becomes a purifying caress. During this stage, do not frantically seek new opportunities. Do not make decisions from urgency or panic. Chaos requires stillness on your part. Keep your sacred routines. Keep cultivating your mind. Keep taking care of your physical body as if it were the temple that will house the new king. Stay very still while the trash is swept. Watch the collapse with the cold fascination of a spectator. Your essence, the immutable I am that dwells at the bottom of your consciousness, is fireproof. Your possessions, your labels, and your old loves can burn and turn to ash, but you are the anvil on which these metals are being forged, and the anvil never breaks. Verstufun, the revelation of the lion. The Bridge of Ashes does not last forever. The universe is efficient, and demolition has an expiration date. There will come a morning without bombastic announcements and without trumpets in the sky, when the smoke will begin to dissipate. The air around you will once again feel clean and strangely light. Silence will replace the din. You will come out of the shadows, take the last step on the cold ashes and step on firm ground. You will be standing on a new stage, surrounded by an infinite horizon. And when you look back at the smoking remains of the life you used to call yours, you will not feel melancholy. There will be no tears for what is gone. You will feel an amazing and gigantic gratitude. You will understand with a lucidity that will leave you breathless that all those violent blows, those bloody breakups and those bankruptcies that scared you so much were the perfect and loving chisel strokes of destiny. You will look at your reflection and no longer see a beggar. You will see the unshakable gaze of someone who survived the abyss. You will feel on your shoulders the density of absolute power, and in your chest the inexhaustible calm of the warrior who no longer fears death, because he has died and been reborn under his own terms. The universe will set aside its tools, having finished its work. The dust will settle, and existence itself will stop for an instant, looking down with reverence to hear the first and deafening roar of the lion that has finally been released from the stone. Chapter 7. The Compass of the Invisible. Listening to instinct and the abdication of the logical mind. The intuitive mind is a sacred gift, and the rational mind is a faithful servant. We have created a society that honors the servant and has completely forgotten the gift. Universal wisdom. Imagine for a moment that you are lost in the heart of an ancient and thick forest in the middle of a moonless night. There are no stars to guide you, no paths traced on the earth, and the cold of uncertainty begins to seep into your bones. Before you open multiple directions hidden in the blackness, it is the moment to make a decision. In that moment of terror, your logical mind, the intellect of which you are so proud, takes control. It begins to calculate frantically. It tries to remember maps seen in the past, evaluates the direction of the wind, deduces the probabilities of survival, weighs the risks and projects catastrophic scenarios. Reason screams and debates. Reason contradicts itself and finally paralyzes you. In the darkness of the unknown, logic is a lantern with broken glass. It makes a lot of noise hitting the wind, but does not emit a single spark of light. And suddenly, beneath the mental din, you feel something different. It is not an articulated thought or a mathematical calculation. It is a slight and silent pull in the center of your belly, a warm, inexplicable and magnetic certainty that pushes you gently toward the right, toward a path that your eyes cannot see and that your logic classifies as absurd. There are no rational motives to choose that path, but your whole being vibrates with unmovable conviction. That silent pull, that visceral certainty that defies reason, is the compass of the invisible. It is instinct. Throughout the centuries, civilization has committed the supreme crime of idolizing reason and burying intuition. We have been taught that listening to that inner voice is an act of madness, superstition, or weakness. We have been conditioned to demand guarantees, spreadsheets, lists of pros and cons, and tangible proof before taking a step. But the great forgers of history, the true sovereigns who have altered the course of humanity, never made their most monumental decisions based on pure logic. They acted guided by a blinding flash of sudden knowledge. In this chapter, we are going to dethrone the rational mind from its false reign. You will learn to purify the channel of your intuition and to distinguish the voice of fear from the voice of truth. You will understand that the universe does not communicate with you through eloquent speeches, but through the infallible oracle of your flesh. The parable of the master archer. To understand the supremacy of instinct over physical perception, we must travel to the mists of ancient Japan, to the silent dojos where the sacred art of kyudo, archery, was practiced. The scrolls tell that there was a master archer of such an advanced age that his eyes were covered by the white veil of blindness. He could not see. Despite not being able to see the sunlight, his fame crossed oceans, as it was said that never in all his life had his arrow missed the center of the target. One day, a young warrior, arrogant and proud, famous for his eagle eye and implacable precision, traveled to the master's temple to challenge him. The young man believed in geometry. He believed archery was a matter of calculation, visual precision, muscular tension, and pure physics. He despised the mystical teachings of the old man. He arrived at the dojo at sunset and demanded a test. The master accepted in silence. The young warrior asked that the target be placed at an extreme distance. He tensed his bow. He squinted one eye, calculated the wind force, measured the fall parabola with his rational mind, and released the string. The arrow whistled through the air and struck with a thud exactly in the center of the circle. The young man smiled with self-sufficiency. "Beat that, blind old man," he murmured. The master nodded slowly. "An excellent shot, young man," he said in a calm voice. "But you have shot with the eyes of the flesh, and the flesh is a slave to illusion. Now come with me." The old man walked slowly toward a deep grotto in the mountain, behind the temple. They entered the cave, where the darkness was absolute and suffocating. No hand could be seen. The master asked his disciples to place a new wooden target somewhere deep in that unfathomable cavern. "Shoot now," the old man ordered the young man. The warrior raised his bow, but a cold sweat ran down his back. He could see nothing. His intellect collapsed. There was no distance to calculate, no wind to measure, no objective. He was blind. Gripped by panic and frustration, he fired into nothingness. The arrow bounced uselessly against a distant stone wall. Then, the old master took a step forward in the middle of the total darkness. He took his bow with reverential slowness. He did not seek the target with eyes that did not serve him. He did not calculate. He simply rooted his feet in the earth, breathed deeply, and brought all his attention to the hara, the center of gravity in his belly. The master completely turned off the outside world. He stopped looking for the target and allowed the target to find him. He felt the tension of the universe vibrating in the silence of the cavern. He felt the invisible thread that joined his own center with the center of the objective. And when his belly indicated that the cosmic alignment was perfect, he loosened his fingers. In the impenetrable darkness of the cavern, the deadly flutter of the arrow was heard, followed by a thunderous crack. The young warrior fell to his knees. When the disciples lit the torches, they saw the arrow of the blind old man had not only hit the exact center of the hidden target, but had split in two a tiny seed that was embedded in the middle of the wood. "Reason is the arrow that bounces against the rock," the master whispered. "Instinct is the arrow that was already in the center. The pride of reason and the dead archivist. The tragedy of modern man is that he has turned the logical mind, which should be a faithful butler, into the absolute king of his existence. Do not misunderstand me. The intellect is a formidable tool, but its functions are strictly limited. Your conscious mind is like the archivist of an immense library. Its job is looking back. Its job consists of looking toward the past, reviewing the archives of your previous experiences, reading history books, adding the numbers, and deducing what is safe based on what has already happened. Reason has no eyes for the future. Reason cannot conceive of the unprecedented. If you ask your logical mind to guide you to greatness, if you ask for a destination you have never experienced, your mind will review the archives of your past, see your old failures, read the statistics of the world's ruin, be terrified, and dictate the sentence of the coward. It is impossible. It is too risky. Stay where you are. Settle for the security of known misery. The logical mind did not discover new continents. The logical mind said the earth was flat and ships would fall into the abyss. The logical mind did not compose immortal symphonies, nor paint frescoes that move the soul. Every invention, every leap toward the unknown, every masterpiece has been executed by those who ignored reason. They had the audacity to ignore the hysterical cries of their reason, to obey the insane whisper of their instinct. When you face a vital crossroads, whether to partner with someone, whether to leave your homeland, whether to invest your treasure, and you submit that decision to the court of the mind, you will enter analysis paralysis. You will make endless lists, and almost always reason will choose the path of fear, disguised as prudence. The sovereign dismisses the archivist from his command post. He thanks him for his services for minor tasks, like adding coins, but when tracing the course toward the infinite, the monarch closes the books and kills the light. He turns off the candle of reason, descends into the cavern of his own belly, and listens to the oracle. Third, the oracle of the flesh. How the universe speaks. The seeker's greatest mistake is expecting intuition to speak with a human voice. through clear and grammatically perfect words that resonate in his brain. The supreme intelligence does not use the languages of men, for languages are late inventions, clumsy and full of limitations. The universe communicates through biology. The universe communicates with you through the oldest, most sophisticated and purest technology you possess, the biology of your body. Your flesh is the satellite dish of the cosmos. There exists within you an immense network of nerve endings, centered in your stomach and chest, that picks up subtle vibrations and hidden intentions. It picks up hidden intentions of people and the currents of events before they happen. It is your second brain. It is the radar that never sleeps. How is this compass read? You must learn the somatic language, the language of contraction and expansion. Imagine you are offered a deal that on paper seems perfect. Your mind jumps. The archivist of your logical mind jumps for joy. The money is excellent. Conditions are favorable. Prestige is undeniable. Reason screams, "Sign the document immediately." But in the same instant you take the pen, you feel a dull pressure in the pit of your stomach. It is not a sharp pain, it is a frozen knot. You feel a heaviness. You feel your chest sink slightly, your shoulders tense forward, and your breathing becomes shallow. An inexplicable heaviness invades you, a subtle mist of rejection. That physical contraction is the desperate cry of your instinct. It is the oracle warning you, "Danger, there is poison in the cup, move away." The universe saw variables. The universe has processed millions of variables that your intellect cannot see. It has read the micro-expression of greed on your future partner's face. It has captured the instability of the structure. It has seen the cliff 3 kilometers away. If you ignore that knot in the stomach, you will find yourself in ruin months later. You will lament and repeat the saddest phrase of humanity. "I knew it. From the first day something told me not to do it, but I didn't listen to myself." On the contrary, the affirmative answer of the universe feels like an expansion. They propose a wild idea, a leap into the void that your reason classifies as absolute madness. But upon hearing the proposal, your chest opens. You feel a vibrant heat radiating from your belly. Your spine stands tall without effort. Your lungs fill with air with ease, and a sensation of luminous lightness envelops you. It is a feeling similar to joy, but lacking euphoria. It is an expectant peace. That expansion is green light. That expansion is the green light of the cosmos. It is the wind at your back. When the body expands, existence is telling you, "This is your natural channel. Jump. No matter how dark the abyss seems, I will support your fall." Type 4. The whisper and the roar, distinguishing the voice. The supreme obstacle in the art of listening to instinct is confusion. Many men believe they are following their intuition when they are actually blindly obeying their disguised fears or the whimsical caprices of their wounded ego. To govern this kingdom, you must learn to distinguish the vibratory signature of both voices. The voice of the ego, fear, desire for revenge, anxiety, is noisy. It is a din in your head. It is urgent, hysterical, and demanding. It demands that you act immediately, injects cortisol into your veins, and torments you with disaster scenarios. Send that message now or you'll lose her. Destroy that rival, run, they will laugh at you. Fear argues, discusses, presents false evidence, and projects horror movies on the screen of your imagination. The voice of true intuition, the compass of the invisible, is diametrically opposed. Instinct does not scream. It whispers. Instinct does not pressure you with nervous urgency. It is immensely patient, cold, and factual. It does not argue or give you explanations of why. It simply delivers the pure mandate. When intuition tells you, "Do not take that train," it does not project images of an accident or speed up your heart with terror. It delivers a dry, flat negative lacking in drama. It is a no wrapped in a silence of steel, a deep immobility. If you feel a frantic need to justify your decision with 1,000 logical reasons to others, you are operating from the ego. When you operate from intuition, it is enough for you to say, "I will not do it because I do not feel it is right." And that simple phrase pronounced from calm contains a power that no mind can debate. The value of the blind leap. Recognizing the voice of instinct is only half the job. The true litmus test of mastery is having the inhuman courage to obey it, especially when it contradicts everything the world considers sensible. The universe will subject you to ruthless tests of faith. It will ask you to leave a secure relationship for absolute solitude. It will ask this simply because a mute voice in your belly tells you that love is putting out your light. It will ask you to reject a bag of gold in times of hunger, because instinct reveals that gold is stained with indignity. It will ask you to walk toward the dark cave without a torch. This is the toll of the brave. Whoever demands to see the full map before taking the first step will never leave the port. Instinct does not show you the full staircase. It barely illuminates the step immediately below your feet. It demands that you put your foot in the void, blindly trusting that the stone will materialize just a millisecond before you fall. At first, obeying this compass will make you look like a madman in the eyes of the tribe. They will criticize you, call you reckless, and predict your ruin. The loneliness of the visionary is immense. But as you dare to take those blind leaps, a miraculous phenomenon occurs. You verify that decisions from expansion work. You verify that decisions from the chest result in amazing synchronicities. You meet the right person at the exact moment. Calamity is dodged by millimeters, and wealth flows from unsuspected sources. With each leap of faith, the voice of the oracle becomes louder, clearer, and more present. You stop doubting yourself. The restoration of sovereign silence. The contemporary tragedy is that the human being's compass has been magnetized by constant exposure to the world's static. Modern man lives immersed in a perpetual cacophony. The opinions of others, the noise of crowds, the sentences of false gurus, the fears of the news, and the demands of society bombard his mind. They bombard from dawn until he falls exhausted into sleep. In the middle of that deafening heavy metal, it is biologically and spiritually impossible to hear the whisper of the butterfly that represents your intuition. Your oracle has not died. It is simply drowned under layers of acoustic mud. You must be a guardian. To restore your compass, you must become a zealous guardian of your own silence. You have to learn to endure stillness, to turn off all external noises and sit in the darkness of your own existence. Without books, without voices, without advice from third parties. When you face a great decision, isolate yourself. Don't run. Do not go running to tell your dilemma to 5 friends for their opinion. In the instant you ask for advice from doubt, you allow the fears, limitations, and projections of those friends to infect your energy field. You short-circuit your own connection to the divine. Retire to the temple of your own body. Lock yourself in. Lock yourself in. Breathe slowly. Slow down your rational mind, and bring all the light of your consciousness to your belly. Pose the question to the void, and then, with the coldness of a sentinel, observe the tides of your own body. Wait for the contraction or the expansion, and when the verdict is revealed, stand up. When the body gives you the answer, rise with the unexpugnable certainty of the master archer. Do not look back. Do not apologize. Do not try to explain to the blindness of the world why you have shot your arrow in the dark. They will only see a leap into the void. You in your majesty will know the target was hit. Chapter 8. The Paradox of Effort, the Philosophy of the Intact Edge and the Majesty of Frictionless Action. There is a silent and devastating disease that has infected the spirit of the entire civilization. It is a subtle plague that does not attack the flesh, but the nobility of the soul, and disguises itself under the mask of virtue. We speak of the cult of suffering. Since the cradle, the ordinary man is indoctrinated in the false religion. He is taught that life is a heavy burden, an iron yoke that he must drag up a steep mountain. He is convinced that the merit of a human being is measured by the amount of sweat he sheds, by the hours of sleep he sacrifices, and by the pain he is willing to endure to earn his bread. In the squares, slaves compete, boasting of their fatigue. "I have worked until fainting," they say with pride. "I have fought against the current until my arms have bled." They believe in their tragic ignorance that the universe is a cruel master that demands tributes of pain before granting a single blessing. But if we look at nature, the perfect mirror of divine will, we find no such friction. The sun does not exhaust itself by illuminating the valleys. It simply radiates its nature. Rivers do not fight against mountains. They go around them, seeking the void, and end up carving canyons of breathtaking majesty without shedding a drop of conscious effort. The centennial oak does not try to grow by clenching its teeth, it flows. It simply allows the sap to ascend through its trunk in perfect surrender to the cycle of the seasons. Supreme creation never operates from agonizing sacrifice. It operates from fluidity. In this chapter, we are going to demolish the altar of sterile effort. You will learn to unlearn the lie of the exhausted warrior to adopt a new posture. You will adopt the posture of the untouchable monarch. You will understand the paradox of effort, the esoteric law that dictates that the acts of greatest impact in the material world are executed precisely at the moment of least resistance. Welcome to the philosophy of the intact edge. By the parable of the king's butcher. To understand the abysmal difference between the brute force of mortals and the inscrutable grace of masters, we must open the scrolls of the ancient sage Zhuangzi and remember the story of the court butcher. They say that in an ancient empire, King Wenhui organized a great banquet. To prepare the feast, he sent for Ding, his head cook. Ding was a man of advanced age, of serene movements and deep gaze. The king, surrounded by his ministers, watched Ding as he butchered a massive ox in the palace courtyard. The spectacle was not that of a slaughterhouse, but that of a sacred dance. Every movement of Ding's hand, every turn of his wrist, and every slide of the knife was in harmony. The blade of his knife moved with a soft hiss, separating the meat as if it were a breeze caressing a wheat field. Fascinated by such elegance, the king exclaimed, "It is amazing. How is it possible that your art has reached such a degree of divine perfection? It does not seem that you are cutting a beast. It seems you are composing a symphony." The elder Ding lowered his knife, bowed with reverence, and replied, "Majesty, what this humble servant seeks is not a simple technique. It is the flow of the Tao, the natural order of existence, which goes far beyond the skill of the hands." And he continued his story. "When I began to cut meat 19 years ago, I only saw the ox as a block. I saw it as a massive and fearsome block of matter. I cut blindly and my work was rough and exhausting. 3 years later, I stopped seeing the whole ox and began to understand its anatomy. But now, in my old age, I no longer look at the animal with the eyes of my face. My logical mind turns off, and it is my spirit that guides the blade." The king, intrigued, kept absolute silence while Ding revealed his secret. Common cooks in this kingdom change knives every month because they strike with fury and cut the bone. Cooks who consider themselves skillful change knives once a year because they manage to avoid the bone. But they cut the tendons and dull the blade with friction. The elder raised his knife toward the sunlight. The blade shone pristine and sharp as the first day. "I have used this same knife for 19 years, said Ding. "I have butchered thousands of oxen with it, and its edge remains as intact as if it had just come off the whetstone. What is the secret? Between the joints there are empty spaces. The edge of my knife, being sharp, has no thickness. Therefore I do not fight against the animal. I do not crash against its bones, nor tear its tendons. I simply find the empty space, the nothingness that exists between the unions, and slide my blade through that gap. Finding no resistance, the knife does its work and the beast disarms itself. The beast falls at my feet like a pile of earth." King Wenhui, overcome by the revelation, murmured, "I have heard the words of a butcher, and in them I have learned the secret to governing an empire and living an eternal life. Sighs the slave's blood and the folly of cutting the bone. Listen to the echo of this parable in the halls of your own life. How many times have you behaved like the foolish cook who destroys his knife month after month? Your knife is your vital breath, your inner peace, your physical health, and the nobility of your spirit. Every time you try to force a relationship, you are hitting the blade of your soul. You are hitting it against an impenetrable bone. Every time you try to build a business by pushing closed doors, chasing customers who do not wish to hear you, and sacrificing your rest to try to bend a hostile market, you are breaking the edge of your will against the tendons of adversity. The inertial man believes merit lies in the blow. He confuses stubbornness with perseverance. If a door is locked with an iron padlock, the slave takes a hammer and begins to strike the wood. He screams, sweats, fills with blisters, and bleeds. He spends years hitting the same closed door, and when his hands are shattered, he looks to the sky asking for mercy, believing his pain gives him a right. He does not realize that his agony is useless. The universe does not reward blind stubbornness. The master, faced with the same closed door, does not lift the hammer. He stops. He observes the architecture of the obstacle. He feels the current of the air. He discovers there is no need to destroy the door, for 3 steps away there is a path. There is an open hallway that leads him exactly to the same room. The master walks through the vacuum without shedding a single drop of sweat and reaches the throne while the fool continues to beat the wood behind his back. Cutting the bone is trying to alter the free will of others. It is getting entangled in poisonous discussions to be right. It is wanting the world to adapt to your rigid expectations through emotional violence. Every fit of rage, every sleepless night worrying about how to control your neighbor, and every hour invested in an effort lacking inspiration is a nick in the edge of your spirit. In the end, you may get what you wanted, but victory will taste like ash. Therefore, inspired action and the art of sliding through the void. The philosophy of the intact edge is not an apology for cowardice, nor an invitation to laziness. The ignorant confuse the concept of not forcing with paralyzing inaction. The king's butcher did not leave the knife on the table waiting for the ox to cut itself. He executed a precise, deep, and definitive action. But it was an inspired action. Inspired action is the movement that is born from stillness. It is the step taken when internal and external resistance have disappeared. How do you find the empty spaces in the anatomy of life? You must learn to detect the texture of resistance. Your body and your environment are infallible sensors. When you embark on a project and it slows, when every step feels like walking through a swamp of thick mud, when emails are not answered, when allies fail you mysteriously, when you feel a suffocating heaviness in your stomach upon sitting down to work, the universe is warning you. You are touching bone. Stop. You are forcing the will of existence. The sovereign takes a step back. Instead of clenching his teeth and forcing himself to continue, because he must be strong, the sovereign practices tactical withdrawal. He steps back. He moves away from the project temporarily. He turns off his frightened mind and enters the silence of his own being. He lets the mud settle. He seeks alignment in his inner self. And suddenly, after hours or days of having let go of the desperate effort, in the midst of the most majestic apathy, the flash arrives. An intuition, as we saw in the previous chapter, a contact that appears from nowhere, a side idea that resolves the original problem from a completely unexpected angle. There is the empty space. There is the gap between the joints. In that moment of perfect alignment, when the wind of the universe blows in your favor, you execute the action. You work, write, negotiate, or move, but you no longer feel the effort. You can be active for 10 hours straight, and yet your body does not feel the weight of fatigue because you are the flow. You are being swept away by the current. The blade of your will slides through the void of opportunity, and reality disarms itself at your feet with a smoothness that seems like magic. IV. Handling adversity like water on stone. The mastery of this philosophy requires a radical mutation in your way of facing the attacks and adversities that will inevitably cross your path. The inertial man reacts to the attack by opposing an equal or greater force. If someone insults him, he screams louder. If a competitor challenges him, he spends his fortune trying to destroy them. If a storm threatens his harvest, he builds stone walls to stop the wind, only to see how the wind knocks down his walls and crushes his home. The inertial man is of a stony nature, rigid, inflexible, and therefore destined to break. The alchemist, the forger of his own reality, adopts the nature of water. Water is the humblest element. It is the humblest and yet the most invincible element of the cosmos. When you strike water with a forged steel sword, you do not manage to wound it. Water does not stop the edge. It simply moves aside, allowing the sword to pass through, and in the same instant the steel is withdrawn, the water closes again intact and imperturbable. It offered no resistance and therefore suffered no damage. If someone throws an immense rock into the course of a river, the river does not stop to argue with the rock. It does not try to push it, nor lament the obstacle. The river, in its silent flow, simply goes around the rock. It passes over, under, and around the sides of the stone. It embraces the stone in its bed, and continues its journey toward the vast sea. Over the centuries, that patient and soft water will have polished and disintegrated the hard rock until turning it into fine sand. When you face the insult of an enemy, the betrayal of a partner, or the hostility of an adverse environment become water. Do not offer the hardness of your pride for the other's sword to have something to clash against. If someone seeks to offend you, wrap yourself in the mist of indifference. Let their insults pass through your void. By not finding the bone of your ego to hurt, the aggressor will be unbalanced by their own inertia and fall by their own fury. When circumstances raise a wall, do not throw yourself against the wall. Be the river, find the crack, slide under the problem, adapt to the contour of the obstacle with silent grace. Your flexibility is not weakness. It is the supreme manifestation of a power so vast that it does not need to demonstrate its strength to conquer the world. Fear the separation between discipline and martyrdom. At this point of the ascent, the apprentice often becomes confused and asks the treacherous question, if I should not force things, if I should avoid effort, does it mean I should abandon discipline? Does it mean if I feel lazy at dawn to build my empire, I should stay in bed to not hit the bone of discomfort? This is for cowards, and the monarch abhors cowardice above all things. You must learn to discern with surgical precision between the nobility of discipline and the poison of martyrdom. True discipline never feels like friction against life. Discipline is the act of sharpening the knife on the stone before entering the banquet. It is rising in the stillness. Rising in the stillness of dawn, pulling away from vulgar pleasures to cultivate your mind, or maintaining silence when the body asks to scream, are acts of discipline. They are not a war against the universe, they are a war of domination against your own inner animal. Discipline is self-love in its severest state. Polish your instrument. Martyrdom, instead, is using that already sharpened knife to hit rocks, expecting the rocks to applaud you for your sacrifice. Martyrdom is holding on to a dead project for fear of what they will say. It is staying in a toxic environment saying, I am the one who bears this cross. The martyr inflicts pain on himself to feel superior, but the martyr's work lacks grace and does not produce lasting fruit. The sovereign is brutally disciplined in the preparation of his being, in the purity of his decrees, and in the custody of his silence. But when it comes to executing his work in the material plane, his movement is so free of effort and so full of light that he wins. Witnesses of his success will swear that the gods have given him victory without him having to move a single finger. Thus, the crown of fluidity and the intact empire. Contemplate the history of past kingdoms. All the tyrants who tried to rule the world through terror, brute force, and bloody effort saw their empires crumble before their own bodies turned to dust. The bone they tried to cut ended up nicking and destroying the blade of their ambitions. Power held through tension is doomed to break. The string of a bow that never loosens loses its elasticity and breaks at the most critical moment of the battle. You have been called to erect an eternal kingdom, not a house of cards held by the stress of your nerves. Observe the areas of your life at this very second. Identify the places where you are sweating and clenching your teeth. Identify where you feel you carry the weight of the world in a lead wheelbarrow. Those are the places where you have lost the wisdom of the old butcher. Those are the tendons in which your blade is getting stuck. Stop. Drop the mallet. Withdraw the sword from the bone. Take a step back and breathe the air of the abyss. There is no hurry. The universe has eternity at its disposal, and you are a fragment of that same eternity. Align your chest. Seek the void of opportunity, the natural channel through which your greatness asks to be expressed without pain. And when you feel that resistance has disappeared, when the door of the inscrutable opens softly, slide to your throne. Make your masterpiece, forge your wealth and love with a devouring immensity, but do it with such a superb grace, with such a divine lightness, that at the end of your days you can lift the blade of your spirit before the sunlight and see with a cold smile that you have butchered all the demons of the world and your edge is intact. Chapter 9. The End of Waiting. From the instant man is expelled from the womb and cast into the theatre of the world, an invisible but suffocating yoke is placed upon his shoulders, the yoke of the calendar. The society of ordinary men is built upon the altar of linear time. We are indoctrinated with the belief that life is an endless stone staircase. It is an endless stone staircase, and the only way to reach the summit is to climb it step by step, bleeding, aging, and sacrificing youth. They teach you that wealth, wisdom, and true sovereignty require decades of bitter waiting. They tell you, Be patient, work hard, and someday in a distant future you will receive your reward. Under this spell, the whole of humanity lives in the waiting room of existence. Observe the common man. His mind never inhabits the place where his feet are. He spends his days enduring a present he hates, consoling himself with the mirage that tomorrow things will improve. He lives waiting for the weekend, waiting for the promotion. He lives waiting for vacations, waiting for the promotion, waiting to retire so that finally he can start living. But the future is a ghostly horizon. No matter how much you walk toward it, it always recedes at the same speed. The man who lives waiting dies waiting. But in the high spheres of hidden knowledge, the truth is known. The alchemists of destiny understand a truth that shakes the foundations of mortal logic. Time, as perceived by the physical senses, is an illusion. There is no past where your failures dwell. There is only the memory of the past happening now. There is no future where your glory waits. There is only the imagination of the future now. All the power of the universe, all the energy of creation, and all the majesty of existence are concentrated in a single incandescent point, the eternal now. In this chapter, we are going to break the hourglasses that keep you prisoner. We are going to destroy the fallacy of slow and painful growth. You will learn to annihilate waiting. You will learn to annihilate waiting through the radical assumption of your final identity, discovering that you do not need decades to build an empire if you are capable of embodying the vibration of the emperor in this very same and sacred instant. The parable of the Japanese bamboo. To understand how nature itself mocks the illusion of linear time and step-by-step progress, we must look to the ancient lands of the East and observe the mystery of one of its noblest and most disconcerting plants. Peasants say that when a farmer decides to plant the legendary Japanese bamboo, he must be prepared for a test of faith. The farmer chooses fertile ground, plants the small seed, covers it with soft earth, and begins his labor. During the first year, he waters it with devotion, pulls the weeds, and ensures it receives sunlight. However, at the end of the year, absolutely nothing has sprouted on the surface. Not a single green leaf, not the slightest sign. The farmer does not give up. During the second year, he repeats the ritual. He waters the dry earth, protects the ground, and fertilizes the soil. At the end of the second year, the earth remains sterile and empty. The third year passes. The fourth year passes. The fifth year passes. 5 long years of daily work and incessant watering. And for 60 long months, the farmer receives not even the slightest visual proof that his effort is serving any purpose. His neighbors approach and mock him. They call him crazy, tell him the seed was rotten, that he is wasting his water and youth caring for a piece of dead earth. The whole world advises him to abandon it. But the farmer, who knows the secret wisdom of the forest, ignores the taunts and continues watering that apparently barren corner. And then, in the course of the 5th year, the miracle happens. A small and shy green shoot finally breaks the surface. But what follows is not normal growth. It does not grow centimeter by centimeter. Once it has appeared, the Japanese bamboo explodes in a frantic race toward the sky and grows to the amazing height of 30 meters in just 6 weeks. The peasant did not cultivate a plant that grew 30 meters in 6 weeks. He cultivated a plant that took 5 years and 6 weeks to stand tall. What was happening during those 5 years? What was happening during those 5 years of terrible silence and apparent death? The bamboo was not inactive. It was not asleep. Below the ground, far from the impatient gaze of the world, the plant was working furiously. It was developing a massive, deep, and colossal underground root system. It knew its stem could not support it yet. It knew that if it tried to grow upward prematurely, its fragile stem would not support the weight of its own greatness, and the first wind would knock it down. It needed to expand first in the darkness, to weave its network of power in the invisible, in order to support the miracle of height in the visible. The falsehood of linear progress. Listen to the voice of the earth, for in it is written the code of your own destiny. Ordinary humanity lives obsessed with linear growth. They believe that progress must be seen every day, that 1 + 1 must always sum to 2, and that if they work 10 hours today, tomorrow, they must see exactly 10 hours of material results. When they do not see the green shoot appear immediately, they declare failure. But the ascent to greatness, the forging of true sovereignty, is never linear. It is exponential and asymmetrical. When an initiate decides to transform his life, when he abandons complaints, when he purifies his internal dialogue, he begins his tune. When he begins to tune his lute to the vibration of wealth and power, it is very likely that for a time, the material world will return no reflection. You are watering the seed of your empire in the stillness of your bedroom. You are reading, meditating, mastering your impulses, controlling your breath and acting from nobility. And yet, you look at your bank account and it remains empty. You look at your surroundings and they remain hostile. The neighbors of your mind and social circle mock you. They tell you that all that internal work, those wisdom books and those practices of silence are a waste of time because nothing is changing. But the alchemist, like the bamboo sower, does not seek evidence on the surface. The alchemist knows that the first phase of supreme creation always occurs in the realm of the invisible. During those months of apparent stagnation, you are not wasting time. You are building your root system. You are strengthening your nervous system. You are strengthening it so it can support the thousands of volts of energy that true wealth and power demand. If the universe gave you an empire on the first day you desired it, without having forged the roots of detachment, discipline, and emotional coherence, the weight of success would crush you. Fame would drive you crazy. Gold would corrupt you, and the first wind of adversity would knock down your house of cards. Material delay is not a punishment, it is a divine protection. It is the time necessary for your roots to anchor in the living rock of eternity. And when the root is ready, when the foundation is unshakable, the collapse of time occurs. What would take an ordinary man 30 years of bitter sweat, you achieve in 6 weeks of glowing revelation, rising 30 meters above the world, leaving the unbelievers paralyzed by wonder. 3. The cult of procrastination and the poison of someday. For the explosion of bamboo to occur in your life, you must exterminate from your vocabulary and your heart the most destructive word ever spoken, tomorrow. The concept that your salvation, your wealth, or your peace will arrive someday is the poison that paralyzes your roots. The human mind, in its cowardice, loves to delay. It loves to delay the state of power. It says to itself, "Today I will allow myself to feel sad, poor, and miserable because my circumstances are hard. But when I receive my inheritance, when I find my true love, or when my business succeeds, then that day I will feel like a king." This is the fatal trap of the labyrinth. Remember the law of resonance. The universe does not give you what you want, it gives you what you are. If you decide that you will feel like a sovereign in the future, your state of being in the present is that of a begging slave. And as the universe only responds to the present, to the eternal now, it receives your slave vibration. It decrees, "This man feels like a slave today," and projects his reign for an illusory tomorrow. Granted, keep him as a slave today, and ensure that tomorrow always remains one day out of his reach. Delay does not exist in the universe. Delay is an exclusive creation of your mind. You are the one pushing the finish line away. You push it toward the horizon every time you condition your inner peace to an external event that has not yet happened. The end of waiting does not consist in things arriving faster. It consists in understanding that, in the realm of the spirit, everything has already arrived. First, the usurpation of identity and the invisible crown. How then is delay annihilated? How is time collapsed and the visible world forced to surrender to the invisible? Through the most sacred, arrogant, and masterful technique a human can execute, the usurpation of final identity. You must not wait for the statue to be finished to feel the glory of the work. You must act today. You must act, breathe, walk, and think today, in this precise and exact instant, with the same majesty, the same security, and the same cold indifference that you would have if you had already conquered the whole world. Imagine, with forensic crudeness, what your life would be like if today you possessed infinite abundance and health. How would that man walk down the street? His shoulders would not be hunched by the weight of debt. His gaze would not turn away timidly from strangers. He would walk upright, with a slow but firm step, exhaling a heavy tranquility. How would that man react to minor bad news or a flight delay? He would not scream or despair. He would not feel the world ending, because he who possesses everything does not tremble at the trifles of the plebeians. What would the breath of that man be like? It would be deep, slow, anchored in the bottom of his lungs, free from the knot of anxiety. Your sacred mission is to usurp that identity in this very millisecond. You have to put the invisible crown on your head and refuse to take it off, regardless of what your physical eyes are seeing around you. If your bank account is empty, you will observe it with the indulgent smile of a billionaire who has found a copper coin in an old coat. You will say, "How curious is the density of matter. How slow it is to reflect the gold that already overflows within me." This is not a cheap theater performance. It is the physical and vibratory alteration of your DNA. By assuming the posture, the breath, and the calm of the monarch who has already won, you are cheating the laws of physics. You are bringing future vibration here. You bring it to the present. By doing this, the universe collapses. It enters an unbearable dissonance. It sees a man whose material circumstances are of poverty, but whose energetic signature is of absolute opulence, and divine law dictates that inferior matter must always submit and adjust to the superior vibration. The environment will have no choice but to restructure itself with terrifying speed to match the riches and nobility that you have already dared to embody in the void. The enduring invisibility, the challenge of the senses. Executing this usurpation requires a spiritual discipline that separates kings from children. It requires the ability to endure invisibility and to defy the tyranny of the five senses. Your eyes, your ears, and your touch are treacherous servants. They have been designed to inform you exclusively of what has already died. They inform you of what has already crystallized in the physical world. If you depend on your senses to know how you should feel, you are driving your carriage looking only through the rearview mirror. When you put on the invisible crown, your senses will rebel. Your logic will scream, "Look at you. You live in a hut. You eat hard bread and ask me to feel like an empire owner. It's a farce." It is in that instant of doubt where weak souls are lost. They return to the garden, doubt the seed they planted, dig it up to see if it already has roots, and by bringing it to light before its time, they kill it. Enduring invisibility means being fierce. It means having the ferocity to deny yourself the verification of results. If you have dictated a decree of greatness, if you have assumed the final state, you are absolutely forbidden from feverishly seeking proof that it is working. He who seeks proof is because he doubts. He who doubts emits the vibration of lack, and lack stops the growth of the bamboo dead in its tracks. Walk through the world of shadows with a faith that borders on divine blindness. Water your seed in silence. Execute your daily labors. Fulfill your mundane responsibilities, and polish your skills, but do it from the rest of knowing the heavy work is finished. Let people judge you for your worn clothes or your modest dwelling. They are ignorant that, beneath the dry earth of your present circumstances, your roots have already entangled with the veins of gold from the earth's core. Do not argue with them. Do not try to convince them of your future glory. The lion does not need to bark. Fighten the collapse and glory of the eternal now. When you have truly banished tomorrow from your consciousness, when you have stopped wishing for the future to arrive to save you and have found paradise in the exact center of this second, the weight annihilates itself. You discover that the desperation to reach the goal was a self-imposed suffering. By letting go, you win. By stopping the weight, time loses its capacity to hurt you. A year, a month, or a day become exactly the same, a sacred space where you are already complete. And it is precisely in that state of total absence of hurry, in that majestic abandonment of the calendar, where the seed breaks the ground. Suddenly the impossible happens. Suddenly what seemed impossible yesterday materializes today. The pieces of the cosmic puzzle, which had been moving in the darkness for years, click into place with the sound of thunder. You receive the call that alters your financial destiny. You meet the ally who opens the gates of the kingdom. Your work explodes. Your work, cultivated in the silence of the dawns, explodes before the eyes of the world. And while the ignorant men around you call you lucky and wonder where such a colossus came from overnight, you will remain in silence. You will know that there has been no luck, nor sudden miracle, nor whim of fate. You will know that the height of your castle is nothing more than the exact reflection of the depth of your roots. You will know that you annihilated delay in the same instant you refused to remain the servant of time, to become the master of the eternal now. Chapter 10. The Guardian's Toll. Transmuting fear and the last rite of passage toward greatness. You have endured the demolition of your old life and learned to listen to the whisper of your instinct in the darkness. You feel, deep in your chest, that victory is imminent. The palace you have long yearned for is finally outlined on the horizon. And yet, just as you reach out to turn the golden doorknob, the unthinkable happens. An icy paralysis runs down your spine. An irrational, blind, and suffocating terror takes hold of your lungs. The ground seems to tremble beneath your feet, and an ancient, dark, and poisonous voice begins to whisper from the deepest corners of your skull. Who do you think you are? You are a fraud. You do not deserve this. Everything is going to go wrong. If you take one more step, you will lose everything and be the mockery of the whole world. Suddenly, your entire environment seems to conspire against you. Just the night before signing your biggest contract, you are struck by an inexplicable fever. Hours before publishing, a wave of panic hits you. The unconditional love you just found terrifies you so much that, unconsciously, you start an absurd dispute to ruin it. The inertial man, feeling this panic and witnessing this sudden chaos, retreats in terror. He believes he has received a divine warning, a sign from the heavens ordering him to stop. He says, "I was right. This was not for me." And he flees, returning to the warm and miserable comfort of his old cell, giving up his crown a millimeter from glory. But the initiate, the forger of realities, is not deceived by this illusion. The sage knows that he has not found a sign of failure, but the final tribute that existence demands from him. You have encountered the Guardian's toll. In this chapter, you will learn to look the supreme terror in the eye. You will discover that fear before success is not a murderer coming to destroy you, but a sentinel coming to test the purity of your steel. You will learn the ancient art of transmutation, the sacred technique of surrender. You will learn to give your body to the flames of fear to discover that you are fireproof. The parable of Milarepa and the demons. To understand the illusory nature of terror and the absolute power of surrender, we must ascend to the snowy and lonely peaks of Tibet, where the legend of Milarepa was forged, one of the greatest mystics to have walked the earth. Chronicles tell that Milarepa, after years of spiritual training, decided to isolate himself in a cave. He went to a remote cave in the Himalayan mountains to achieve definitive enlightenment. The cave was his sanctuary, a place of immaculate peace where his spirit soared without ties. One afternoon, after going out to collect wood and water, Milarepa returned to his abode. Crossing the entrance, he stood frozen. His refuge was invaded. The cavern was infested with dozens of grotesque demons, creatures with fangs dripping poison, bloodshot eyes, scaly bodies, and sharp claws crawled on the floor and climbed the walls, growling with insatiable bloodlust. They were the embodiment of absolute terror, and they had profaned his most intimate place. He was petrified. Milarepa's first reaction was that of the ordinary man. He felt fear and tried to defend his territory through force. He ran toward the demons, shouting, waving his arms, and trying to scare them away, but the creatures simply mocked him and grew in size. Frustrated, Milarepa tried to use his spiritual knowledge as a weapon. He sat in the lotus position and began to recite sacred mantras with fury, invoking protective deities, trying to exorcise the beasts with spells of light. However, the more he struggled to reject them, the fiercer the demons became. Their roars made the mountain tremble, and their claws scratched the rock inches from the monk's face. Exhausted, sweating, and on the verge of madness, Milarepa understood the futility of his battle. His spells, his resistance, and his terror were the food that made the beasts grow. Then, the sage executed the supreme act of mastery. He dropped his hands. He sighed deeply, abandoning all intention of fighting, fleeing, or protecting. He looked at the terrifying creatures with immense compassion and spoke with a voice devoid of fear. "You are projections of my own mind, shadows of my own soul. You have come to my cave because I myself, in my imperfection, have summoned you. I will no longer fight you. If you want my flesh, here it is. Take my blood and my bones. Take my blood, devour my bones, and satisfy your hunger." After pronouncing these words, Milarepa walked serenely toward the largest demon, the leader of the horde, a colossal beast whose jaws dripped fire and shadows. Without hesitating, The monk placed his own head directly into the open mouth of the monster, offering himself. In the exact instant that Milarepa surrendered to absolute terror and accepted his fate without the slightest resistance, an overwhelming silence filled the cavern. The giant demon vanished in a cloud of smoke. Turning around, Milarepa saw the rest of the creatures dissolve into the air, like mist touched by the morning sun's rays. The cave remained empty, bathed in a pure and silent light. The demons had not been defeated by force. They had been annihilated by the total absence of fear. 2. The physiology of the barrier and the fear of success. Milarepa's cave is your own consciousness, and those demons are the irrational panic that assails you just before achieving your greatest consecration. Why does this happen? Why does the human mind rebel with such violence, just when it is about to obtain what it has sought for its entire life? The answer lies in our own ego. It lies in the nature of our ego and the primary instinct of preservation. The human ego is a mechanism designed to keep you safe in the known. For the ego, the known is synonymous with survival, even if the known is poverty, loneliness, or failure. You have inhabited scarcity for so long that your body and mind built identity around it. You have become used to being the fighter, the one who suffers, the one who is always about to achieve it but never reaches it. That is your comfort zone. When you apply the laws of alchemy and the universe begins to give you power, wealth, and absolute love, you approach the threshold of the unknown. You leave the peasant behind. You are going to stop being the peasant to become the king. You are going to cross a border from which there is no return, and the ego, terrified at the annihilation of its old identity, activates the emergency alarms. It shoots the poison of fear into your blood. It tries to convince you that success is dangerous. It whispers to you. It whispers that if you reach the top, responsibilities will crush you, that if you have wealth, others will envy you and want to destroy you, that if you are truly loved, you will be exposed, and betrayal will annihilate you. This phenomenon is known in the high psychology of the spirit as the upper limit. We all have a thermostat. We all have an internal thermostat that dictates how much abundance, love, and greatness we believe we are worthy of tolerating. When life threatens to exceed that limit, when the universe offers you more glory than your system is used to processing, you yourself manufacture demons to sabotage the blessing and return to safety. The third, the masks of the guardian, the imposter syndrome. The guardian of the threshold never presents himself with his true face. He is a master of disguise. Rarely does he manifest as an obvious fear of success. He hides behind very sophisticated masks that deceive the intellect and justify retreat. One of his favorite masks is the fateful imposter syndrome. You are about to lead. You are about to lead your empire, publish your work, or take a position of immense power. And suddenly you feel a suffocating certainty that everything is a sham. The voice of the guardian tells you, you are not ready. You are a charlatan. You have only been lucky so far, but today everyone is going to realize you don't know. You will be unmasked and humiliated in the public square. The inertial man believes this voice. He is ashamed, bows his head, cancels his projects, and decides to prepare a little more, spending another 5 years studying in the shadows, fleeing from the light. The initiate knows that imposter syndrome is not a psychological defect. It is an undeniable biological symptom that he is about to expand his territory. It is the vertigo of altitude. If you did not feel that vertigo, it would mean you are operating within your past limits, repeating mediocre tasks that demand no growth. Feeling like an imposter is the medal of honor for those who dare to invade the unknown. Other times the guardian disguises himself as physical or logistical problems. You get seriously ill the night before your big opportunity. You lose vital documents. Your carriage breaks down on the road. The friends you trusted most suddenly abandon you and leave you alone before the abyss. You think the world is attacking you, but it is your own shadow, your own terror of change, manifesting through the mirror of the universe to give you a perfect and honorable excuse not to cross the door. The guardian is offering you the exit of cowards. It wasn't your fault, it was fate, your ego will tell you, to comfort you while you return to your hut. The error of battle and the law of the opposite reflection. The most dangerous trap the seeker faces when the guardian appears is the instinct to do battle. This is the mistake Milarepa made in his first attempts. Modern literature and motivational chatter tell you that you must fight your fears, defeat your demons, and crush doubt. They invite you to dress as a warrior to fight. They tell you to clench your fists and repeat aggressive affirmations to silence the terror. This is a fatal thermodynamic blunder. In the realm of the invisible, that which you fight against grows stronger. That which you resist persists. When you declare war on your own fear, you are granting it reality status. You tell the universe, "This monster is real, it is solid, it is dangerous, and I must spend all my vital energy to stop it." The friction of your resistance generates an immense heat that feeds the demon. Fear feeds exclusively on your opposition to it. If you run from a shadow, the shadow pursues you eternally. If you try to stab it, your sword stays empty. Your sword passes through the air, but the shadow remains intact, mocking your exhaustion. Trying to think positively while you're in a panic attack is like trying to put out a forest fire by throwing cups of fresh water at it. The fire will evaporate the water before it hits the ground and use the oxygen to burn with more fury. The true monarch does not fight with the demons of the threshold. The monarch understands that the monsters in the cave are not external invaders. They are holographic projections of his own doubt, and one cannot defeat a projection by shooting arrows at it. The only way to turn off the image is by unplugging the projector. The art of transmutation, entering the jaws. Absolute mastery, the climax of inner alchemy, is achieved by executing the technique of voluntary sacrifice. It is the moment to apply Milarepa's lesson and put your head into the jaws of the monster. When you find yourself in front of the door of your destiny and terror hits you with paralyzing force, do not try to be brave. False bravery is glass armor. Do not try to flee or distract yourself either. Stop dead in your tracks. Retreat to the solitude of your room. Sit in absolute stillness and drop your weapons. Give up the battle. Invoke fear. Call the guardian and ask him to manifest with all his cruelty. Close your eyes and allow the anxiety to invade. Allow it to invade your chest, your stomach, and your throat. Do not judge it. Do not try to change it for pleasant thoughts. Immerse yourself in the boiling core of the physical sensation of panic. Then, with a cold and analytical mind, imagine the worst possible scenario. The guardian whispers that you will be humiliated. Accept it. Say to the darkness, "Very well, I will be humiliated. I will lose this money. I will fail in front of the crowds. Everyone will abandon me. What else? Show me the bottom of the abyss." Observe the absolute disaster on the screen of your imagination and make peace with it. Surrender to the idea of ruin. Embrace the worst consequence. Embrace it with sovereign indifference. Say to your own ego, "If this is the price I must pay for daring to claim the crown, I pay it gladly. Devour me if you must." In the precise instant you accept, deeply and genuinely, the worst of fates without offering emotional resistance. In the millisecond you stop protecting your pride, you win. When you surrender to the jaws of fear, the spell is broken. Terror, seeing itself deprived of the food of your resistance, collapses upon itself. You feel an immense void in your chest, immediately followed by a surge of pure electric and expansive energy. It is alchemical transmutation. The heavy lead of panic has melted. Being subjected to the fire of unconditional acceptance, it has turned into the dazzling gold of unshakable courage. You discover that you are not afraid of failure or ruin or mockery. You are afraid of the sensation of fear. By allowing yourself to feel it to the last drop, you have emptied the snake's venom. You cross fire. You have crossed the fire and discovered that your essence is fireproof. Verse, the sovereign's walk and the guardian's reverence. When you open your eyes after this communion with the abyss, the world has changed. The material environment may still be uncertain, risk may still exist, but you are no longer the same. Your gaze has acquired the cold hardness of tempered steel. Your breathing is deep and calm. Hysterical anxiety has disappeared, replaced by focus. It is replaced by a lethal concentration. You get up from your chair and walk toward the golden door of your destiny. And there, where you once saw a threatening demon ready to devour you, you now see the truth. The guardian of the threshold was never a killer sent to destroy you. He was a loyal and fierce sentinel of the universe. He was placed on the border of greatness with a single and inviolable order: to scare away the tourists, to frighten the weak, to paralyze the cowards, and to ensure that only the true kings took the throne. Seeing that you do not stop, seeing that you offer your whole life to the vision of your work and that terror no longer rules you, the Guardian does what he was designed for. He sheathes his flaming sword, he steps aside, and he bows with a deep and absolute reverence, paying honors to the monarch who has proven worthy of his own ambition. You cross the threshold without haste. You leave behind the lands of inertial suffering and enter the gardens of your creation. The imposter syndrome vanishes, because he who is willing to lose everything for his art can never be a fraud. Your decisions are now imbued with an immense gravitational weight. The market, the people, and circumstances bend in your path, because they perceive in your aura the signature of the man who smiled at the devil. They see the man who has descended into the hell of his own mind and returned with the keys to the kingdom in his hand. Chapter 11. The Empty Instrument, the Supreme Purpose and the Crown of Cosmic Service. You have learned to tune the vibration of your being, to look the world in the face without being deceived by its mirages, to let go of the attachments that kept you enchained, and to govern the kingdom of your own mind. You have crossed the purifying fire of chaos and tamed the beast of terror that guarded the gates of greatness. Through the iron application of these hidden laws, man acquires an incalculable power of manifestation. You can demand that the earth surrender its gold, you can demand the respect of the multitudes, and you can erect marble palaces where before there was only dust. You have ceased to be the leaf blown by the wind to become the wind itself, and yet there is an abyssal and silent danger waiting on this summit. It is the last great trap of the spirit, and the most difficult to avoid. Imagine the man who, having mastered all these laws, uses his immense power solely and exclusively to satisfy the appetites of his own ego. He surrounds himself with riches and conquests. He surrounds himself with riches, accumulates conquests, wears the finest silk, and demands that the world revolve around his name. He has built an empire, yes, but it is a walled empire, inhabited by a single man. Over the years, despite having the world at his feet, a cold and suffocating mist begins to seep under the doors of his throne. He wakes up in the early morning feeling a terrifying emptiness in his stomach. He discovers that gold does not comfort in restless nights, and that the applause of flatterers has a metallic and hollow echo. He has won the world, but he has lost the meaning of his own existence. He has fallen ill with the misery of blind kings. The final evolution of the monarch, the definitive leap that separates a simple earthly magician from a true sovereign of creation, occurs when you understand that power was not given to you so that you could worship yourself in front of a golden mirror. In this culminating chapter, we are going to dismantle the prison of the crowned ego. You will learn to transmute selfish ambition into supreme purpose. You will discover that true immortality is not achieved by trying to fill your life with treasures, but by emptying yourself completely to become a perfect and silent instrument, through which the universe can pour its own miracles upon the earth. The parable of the master's flute. To illustrate the mystery of creative emptiness and the purpose of the soul, we must listen to the tale that the ancient masters told their disciples under the shade of millennial cedars. They say that in a remote valley, surrounded by impregnable mountains, lived the greatest of musicians. He did not play ivory lutes or skin drums. His only instrument was a bamboo flute. However, when the master brought the flute to his lips, the melody that burst from it was so heartbreaking, so sublime, and so imbued with light that it possessed miraculous attributes. Upon hearing the melody, the sick forgot their pains and rose from their beds. Men full of rage dropped their arms. Men full of rage dropped their arms and wept, embracing each other, and wild animals came out of the forest to sit peacefully at the master's feet. The fame of that divine music crossed the seas. Kings, scholars, and mages from distant lands traveled to the valley to discover the master's secret. One day, an arrogant scholar approached. The scholar, who believed he knew all the mysteries of matter, approached the musician after a recital, and pointing to the worn wooden instrument, asked, "Master, what kind of ancient magic have you carved into that wood? What spells have you pronounced over that piece of bamboo so that it is capable of producing music that moves the heavens? Reveal to me the secret of the flute." The master smiled with deep and tender melancholy. He took the flute with both hands, held it up to the sunlight so the scholar could look through it, and replied, There is no magic engraved in the wood. There are no secret spells, nor precious woods, nor jewel inlays. This was a wild branch. The master stroked the bamboo and continued. For this branch to be able to sing, it first had to be cut, separated from its comfort. Then it had to endure the pain of iron, when a sharp knife pierced its center and tore out, with violence and patience, all the pulp that filled it inside. It had to be completely emptied. It lost all. It lost everything it believed it was. It was stripped of itself until it was turned into a simple hollow tube, into a nothingness wrapped in wood. The scholar frowned, unable to understand the lesson. The secret of its music does not reside in what the flute possesses, but in what it lacks, the master sentenced with a firm voice. If the bamboo kept inside a single gram of its old pulp, a single trace of its ego, the air would crash against it and only produce a dull and opaque noise. The flute produces the most beautiful melody in the world, precisely because it has resigned itself to being an empty instrument. It does not make the music by itself. It stays hollow. It stays hollow, clean and without obstacles, so that the infinite breath of existence can flow through it without finding resistance. The cancer of creation, the trap of the ego, all the misfortune, all the exhaustion, and all the failure that haunts men are born from refusing to be the hollow flute. The ordinary human being lives stuffed with himself. His interior is saturated by the dense pulp of his own ego. His fears, his past traumas, his obsessive need to receive applause, his desire for revenge and pride. His interior is saturated by his urge to prove to the world he is superior, and his incessant longing to accumulate matter, to feel safe in a universe he does not understand. He is so full of himself that the breath of life cannot pass through him. And when the intelligence of the universe tries to whisper a great idea, it dies inside. When the universe tries to whisper a redeeming project or a deep love through him, the melody chokes, suffocates in the pulp of his pride, and ends up turned into the shrill noise of failure and neurosis. When you start the path of inner alchemy, your first motivation is inevitably selfish. You use the power of decree for yourself. You use resonance and heavy certainty to free yourself from pain. You want a better house. You want to pay your debts. You want to be admired and find the ideal partner. The universe, in its infinite generosity, grants it to you. It teaches you that you are the master of the loom and that you can weave your own golden robe. But existence watches you in silence, waiting for you to grow tired of your toys. There comes a moment when the accumulation of personal triumphs no longer feeds your spirit. You look at your full chests, observe your conquests, and ask yourself, what now? Was the purpose to grill my own meat while the rest of the world dies of cold? That is the breaking point. If you get stuck in that phase, the cosmic energy that flows toward you will begin to stagnate. Water that does not run rots. Power used exclusively to exalt one's own name becomes a poison that isolates the king in his castle and plunges him into paranoia, premature aging, and moral decay. 3. The cosmic contract and the law of Dharma. To avoid the putrefaction of the soul and achieve absolute majesty, you must understand your exact place in the architecture of the cosmos. You must sign the cosmic contract and assume your Dharma. The universe is not an inert machine. It is an immense and colossal living organism. It is a being that breathes, evolves, and creates. It is a being that constantly seeks to elevate its own consciousness, organize its own chaos, and create forms of greater beauty and harmony. You, in your vehicle of flesh and bone, are not an outside spectator to that organism. You are a cell of that infinite body. Observe the undeniable wisdom of the human body and its cells. When a cell of your liver decides to ignore the well-being of the entire body, cuts off its communication with the system, and begins to absorb nutrients compulsively, obsessed only with its own growth at the expense of other cells, what does medicine call that? It calls it cancer. Cancer is the rebellion of the cellular ego, and the body, to survive, will mobilize its entire immune system to attack, isolate, and destroy that rebellious cell. In the same way, when a man uses his hidden knowledge and his vital force uniquely and exclusively to accumulate wealth, destroy competition, and satisfy whims, he becomes a cosmic cancer. The universe will stop him. Sooner or later, the intelligence of the universe will cut off his supply. He will fall into disgrace, his alliances will break, and his empire will be reduced to dust, victim of the immune system of existence. On the contrary, what happens to the healthy cell, the one that recognizes its function and works to purify the blood? The whole body leans in to serve it. The heart pumps oxygen-filled blood specifically toward it. The digestive system processes the purest food to nourish it. The body protects that cell at any cost, because the survival of the whole depends on the proper functioning of that unit. This is the secret of overwhelming abundance. When you, in an act of supreme surrender and lucidity, align your personal gifts with the benefit of the great web of life, you become the indispensable cell of the universe. This is Dharma, the correct action, the sacred purpose, the cosmic duty. Far the logistics of heaven, wealth as a consequence. When you cross the border of the ego and enter the domains of Dharma, your relationship with money, with prestige, and with power changes from the root. The inertial man pursues money as if it were a supreme end, a war booty. Sweaty and desperate, he tries to tear coins from the pockets of the world. He is a slave to the hunt. The empty instrument, the sovereign who has assumed his purpose, does not pursue gold. He understands that money, influence, and unshakable health are, plain and simple, the logistical budget that the universe gives him so that he can execute his work with excellence. When your ambition stops being about proving you are valuable, when it transforms into, I'm going to build an empire and solve an immense problem to elevate the lives of thousands of human beings, the entire cosmos stands up and takes note of your intention. The universe says, here is a channel. Here is a man who has emptied himself of his own arrogance and offers to be my hands on earth. This man needs resources to build. He needs influence to spread my light. He needs gold to raise walls and hire workers. Open the floodgates of the infinite vault and supply him with everything he demands, without measure and without delay. He who works for the progress of existence is financed and protected by existence itself. Your companies, your art, your talents, or your oratory cease to be survival tools to become offerings. You no longer write so they applaud you. You write because knowledge struggles to descend to earth through your pen. You no longer forge businesses to hoard bills. You forge them because humanity needs efficient structures. And the paradox of the gods is that, by unworrying about your own fame and focusing obsessively on the value and beauty you can deliver to the world, the wealth you receive will be obscene, incalculable, and overwhelming. People will run to give you their gold in gratitude, and your name will be immortalized by your service. V. The art of emptying the vessel. How is this majesty of the empty instrument reached in the midst of the noise of daily life? How is the pulp of pride torn out to become the master's flute? It requires the exercise of the surrender of authorship. You must exterminate in yourself the need for recognition. The ego always wants to claim the merit. It wants the applause. When the ego achieves a feat, it raises its chest and shouts, "Look at me, I did it. I am the creator of this wonder, worship me." The ego feeds on applause, and if it does not receive it, it becomes depressed and filled with bitterness, abandoning the work. The true monarch has transcended that infantile weakness. He is empty. When the sovereign culminates a masterpiece, when he erects a fortune, writes a doctrine that transforms lives, or leads an army to victory, he does not get drunk with the praise of the crowd. In the silence of his chambers, the king bows his head before the infinite and confesses with the purest and coldest humility, "It was not me. It was not me. These hands of flesh do not have the power to forge such beauty. I only maintained the discipline of my silence. I only cleaned the channel. I was the pen, but the ink and the words came from the mystery. The merit does not belong to me." By voluntarily giving up merit, you free yourself from the weight of pride. Pride is heavy and fragile. Emptiness is light and invincible. When you empty your vessel of the need for approval, the universe can trust you. It knows it can give you absolute power, gigantic fortunes, and overwhelming charisma, because it knows you will not be corrupted. It knows the current of opulence will pass through you. It will flow from the heights of heaven toward the valleys of the earth, leaving in its wake blooming gardens and relieved hearts. Vix, the immortality of the channel and the final symphony. It is here in this radiant emptiness where your evolution as an alchemist concludes, and your life as the demiurge of your own destiny begins. Look at yourself now. Gone is the hunched man who begged for love and coins at the crossroads. Gone is the frightened apprentice who tried to force matter through blows. You have crossed. You have crossed the bridge of ashes and transmuted the fire of demons into the fuel of your will. Now you are the instrument. You are clean. You are hollow. You have pierced the knots of your past traumas. Your mind is an incorruptible court that does not admit fear. Your chest is a forge of heavy and magnetic certainty, and your hands are the silent executors of a plan much vaster than your own life. When you wake up tomorrow, you will no longer ask yourself, "What can I get from the world today to feel happy?" You will rise, look at the dawn with the serenity of a titan, and formulate the only question worthy of greatness. What work do you want now? What prodigy, what beauty, and what work of immense power does the universe wish to execute through my hands today? By formulating that question, the breath of eternity will enter through your crown. Your carbon body will become a superconductor, free of resistance. You will walk among the crowd surrounded by an unexpugnable aura. Iron doors will open at your step with a whisper. Walls will fall before the purity of your intention, and material wealth will cover your feet like moss covers wet stone, inevitable and natural. You will never worry about fatigue, because it will not be you who makes the effort. You will be the perfect bamboo, the sacred conduit. You will observe with reverence and wonder how the creative force of the cosmos blows through you, plucking from the silence of this world a music so pure, so overwhelming, and so eternal that the men of the future will remember your step as that of a god. The internal work has concluded. The instrument is tuned. The instrument is tuned and the channel is open. It is time for the symphony to begin. Epilogue, the awakening of the sovereign. The journey has come to an end. In a few moments the sound of my voice will be extinguished, and silence will once again take possession of the room where you are. The words that have filled your mind during this journey, the sacred laws, the ancient parables, and the secrets of internal alchemy will stop vibrating in the air. They will stop vibrating in the air to settle, definitively and irreversibly, in the blood that runs through your veins. You have walked through the fire of knowledge. You have been stripped of your old beggar's clothes and have contemplated, naked and in the stillness of your own abyss, the invisible gears that move the threads of fate. But before the silence seals this predestined encounter, you must hear one last warning, for the abyss that separates the wise from the foolish is not found in what both ignore, but in what both do with the truth once it has been revealed to them. To seal this doctrine in your spirit, it is imperative to remember an ancient legend. It is an ancient legend born in the immemorial plains of India. Tradition says that many centuries ago, a lion cub was tragically orphaned a few hours after birth. Abandoned to its fate in a vast meadow, the small feline was found and adopted by an immense flock of sheep. The lion grew up surrounded by wool, bleating, and fear. Knowing no other reality, he faithfully imitated his adoptive family. He learned to graze on bitter grass, to walk with his head down, and to tremble in panic at the slightest rustle of branches, terrified by the wolves and predators lurking in the dark. The cub believed with absolute conviction that he was just another sheep. He believed he was fragile, vulnerable, and irremediably destined for sacrifice. Years passed, and that cub grew into a colossal animal, though his spirit remained that of a fearful prey. One day, an adult lion, a true monarch of the jungle with an imposing mane and scars from 1,000 battles, suddenly burst into the meadow. Upon seeing the predator, the entire flock fled in a stampede, enveloped in a cloud of dust and bleats of terror. However, the young lion raised among sheep tripped and remained prostrate on the ground, trembling, closing his eyes, and bleating weakly, begging for mercy from the newcomer. The adult lion stopped dead in his tracks. He was paralyzed by indignation and wonder at beholding such a pathetic spectacle. Instead of devouring him, he approached the young man, gave him a direct blow to wake him from his hysteria, grabbed him firmly by the skin of the neck with his powerful jaws, and dragged him through the forest. He took him to the shore of a deep lake. Its waters were so calm that they looked like a silver mirror under the midday light. "Open your eyes and look," roared the old lion with a voice that made the roots of the trees tremble. Look at your damn face." The young lion, trembling, leaned over the edge of the water. For the first time in his life, he did not see a sheep. He did not see a languid sheep staring back. He saw the unmistakable face of majesty. He saw the fierceness of fangs designed to reign, the nobility of a dark mane, and the structure of a body forged for absolute dominance. In a blinding burst of lucidity, he understood the great lie in which he had lived. He knew he was not prey. In that sacred instant, the old lion raised his head to the sky and let out a deafening roar that made the birds flee and silenced the entire jungle. The young lion, feeling how the fire of his true millennial nature finally rose from his belly to his throat, opened his jaws and let out an identical roar, a thunder of pure power. The thunder of pure power tore through the heavens. Never again did he eat grass. Never again did he bleat. And never again did he lower his head before the inertia of the world. Listen to me well. The world has raised you in the fold of inertial sheep. Society, the culture of complaint, the cult of suffering and dogmas taught you. They taught you from the cradle to lower your eyes. They indoctrinated you to settle for scraps, to bleat begging for mercy before the wolves of scarcity, and to believe that you were a tiny creature, a victim of a hostile and blind universe. But this work you now hold in your hands has been the old lion. You have seen the lake. The words that have resonated in your mind during these chapters have been nothing more than the crystalline waters of the cosmic lake. My only task has been to grab you by the neck, drag you out of the flock, and force you to lean over the mirror of truth. I have forced you to look, without filters and without lies, at your true face. You already know who you are. You have remembered how to tune your own lute. You know the inescapable magnetism of your heart and the secret alchemy of your words. You understand that obstacles are mere ashes preparing the ground for your palace, and that anxiety about time is an illusory prison that you yourself can disintegrate. You can disintegrate it by inhabiting the eternal now. Therefore, the instruction is over. The greatest danger that haunts you from this millisecond on is falling into spiritual gluttony, becoming a mere tourist of divine mysteries. The tourist is one who collects doctrines, accumulates scrolls, and gets drunk listening to philosophies. The tourist gets drunk listening to beautiful philosophies, but never wields the sword. The tourist sits comfortably in the stands to contemplate the arena, deceiving himself by believing that knowing the path is exactly the same as having the courage to walk it. The absolute monarch abhors sterile theory. He demands execution. The true creator demands relentless execution in the world of matter. Close the books. Turn off the external voices, including mine. There are no more excuses to seek in the libraries of the wise, nor more secret techniques to learn in the comfort of the shadow. All the arsenal you need to bend reality is already in your chest. It already pulses with fury in the center of your chest. Leave your bedroom and enter the arena of the physical world. Go and claim without apology the empire you left abandoned while you slept. Love with an immensity that terrifies cowards. Forge your wealth by sliding through empty spaces, and lead your destiny. Lead your destiny by being the pure instrument through which the universe breathes. The fold has been left behind forever. The wailing is over. Submission is over. Begging in the corners of life is over. Stand up. Open your jaws. It is time for the whole world to hear your roar.